Ladies and gentlemen, we're starting our March regular session Bourne School Committee meeting. It is 6:30, a little after 6:30. And we generally start our meeting with any public comments. Is there anyone in the public that would like to address the group? Seeing none, we'll continue on with our open session. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay, although this is not being played live, we'd just like to make an announcement. Anybody recording or audio, video recording this evening, they can make an announcement? Okay, seeing none, we'll continue with Heather DiPaolo reading our vision and mission.
Vision. We are a committed community where 100% of Bourne Public Schools students... Vision. We are a committed community where 100% of Bourne Public School students graduate with the knowledge, habits, and skills to compete and collaborate effectively as society evolves. The town of Bourne will continually empower students and staff to achieve personal goals and demonstrate lifelong learning. The mission. The mission of the Bourne Public Schools is to connect individuals to their success, engage the community in new ways to facilitate student achievement, guarantee a relevant, viable curriculum, and assure universal accountability that supports the success of all students.
Thank you, Heather. Okay, announcements. We'll start off with Mr. LaMarche.
Mr. Chairman, School Committee. I just want to, first, I didn't get a second student's name up there, but James is up, junior at Bourne High School, helping us out with the sound system this evening, so I wanted to make sure we thank James for helping us. I know I see Dawson. I'm not sure who is to the right of James. Jay. Okay. So I just wanted to compliment them and thank them for their for tonight. Today, as you know, was Read Across America Day, Dr. Seuss Day. Some of us had the pleasure of breaking up our day in preparation for this evening's meeting by going and reading to elementary age students. I have the pleasure of going to a second grade classroom over at Bourne Elementary School and read 2 books. Two of some of my favorites. One was Berenstein Bears, and it was about truth. It was a nice life lesson. And then the other one was Who Am I? And it was all about a frog. We decided who the frog was. But we had a great time and Read Across America over at Bourne Elementary School this morning. I don't have other announcements other than just pay attention to Bourne High School athletics. We have several teams that are in the playoffs for South Coast Conference. We've had games. Actually, I'll let Mr. Donahue talk about the games because he's up to speed on all of these. Yeah, actually Dawson, when he does a student report, we'll talk about the games. But that's all I have for announcements this evening. I know Sue Sweetson probably has some.
I also went today over at Bournedale to a kindergarten class, which was really nice, and we read Grandfather Twilight, even though it wasn't bedtime, but it was a lot of fun. And I just wanted to announce that the Elementary Science and Engineering Expo is happening March 23rd from 5:30 to 7 here at the high school in the iStudio. And this is an opportunity for students and teachers to showcase some of the work they've been doing this year in science and engineering. And it's also an opportunity to engage in some activities that are focused on science and engineering as a family. So we're hoping that a lot of elementary students and families will attend. That's all I have.
Anybody on the board have any announcements? Okay, I'll use this opportunity then to introduce our newest school committee member, Erica Fitzpatrick. Erica is the mother of 4 children, works with you. She'll take a moment to introduce herself and say hello. I just wanted to reiterate, though, that Erica's term is for the next few months, as she'll be part of the general election that will happen in May. We'll be looking for a few more school committee members. So if you have any interest in the audience, in public members of the community, we'd love to have you on board.
Hi, I'm Erica Fitzpatrick. I am the new interim school committee member till May. I will probably be running in May. I'm using this kind of as a stepping stone to see how I can fit in and make this work. But I'm definitely looking forward to learning a lot and getting to know more people in the Bourne community and working with all the great administrators and teachers. So thank you.
Thank you, Erica. All right, next up on the agenda, we have welcoming the school members, but before we get to that, I see Dawson here, and I don't see him on the agenda, so should we...
That's my area.
So should we make a motion to amend the agenda, or at least...
I think you can do that by consensus.
Just by consensus? Dawson, you want to come on down? Okay, so routine, we have a student member of the school who comes in and gives a report on some of the goings on within the school. Dawson Prophet's here.
So I just wanted to mention, sorry I haven't been here for the past couple months. Every single hockey game I lose on Wednesdays.
Dawson,
So,
hold your mic up.
oh,
Thanks.
sorry about that. So I wanted to start off, our Bourne High School drama team, or drama club, placed 7 awards that would help lead them to qualifying for the semifinals in their respective drama. Those 7 awards will lead the pack of all schools throughout the day. AJ Gates, Sean White, Catherine Brennan, and Amanda Lewis all won for acting, and Michael Callahan, James Corelli, Stephanie Velios, Emma Pacheco, David Markey, and Dave Hamilton won for set design. Jay Allison, who's up there, won his 3rd straight lights, and Andrea Whalen won for props. And now they go March 19th to Framingham High School. Actually, they go compete for the finals, or semifinals. Next, I wanted to mention that the career fair is coming to Bourne, and just above 15 local companies are coming to Bourne High on March 8th from 11:45 to about 1:45 to mention how their company runs, what type of school you would need to be a part of their company. And I should mention that you ought to dress nice, as most of you are, just in case you landed on the spot interview. I wanted to mention the girls basketball team, who's playing right now at Archbishop Williams. They made it to the tournament, obviously. And boys basketball plays on Saturday against the winner of Cardinal Spellman versus Westport. I think Cardinal Spellman ended up winning. And then we play tomorrow against Hopkinton at 6 p.m. Finally, Ms. Detner would like me to announce that we are looking for parent volunteers to serve on the NEAC, NEASC Standards Committee. You can probably talk a little bit about that, but they will undergo the decennial visit for the NEASC accreditation in October, and we are looking for parents to feedback this spring. And that is about it. And if you're interested, you can email Leslie Sullivan. So thank you.
So did you get the winning goal the last game?
I did, yes.
Yes, congratulations. And no blonde hair this year either.
No, it's not too
Never when one of those spot interviews could happen. Thank you.
Thank you, Dawson.
Okay, next up on the agenda, we have to welcome the 2015-2016 school council members. Superintendent.
Mr. Chairman, school committee, as you know, we've had this on and off on our agenda. It's, we still haven't really figured out how to make this work for us, so I apologize for that. We did inform school council members who come. As you can see, there is not a lot in the audience, but there are some members here. I'd be happy to, have principals introduce them to you as a school committee, and if you have any questions or if they want to provide you feedback as you've done in the past, then I promise you we will get better at this as we go on.
Very good.
You also have a list of them in your school council members in your binder as well.
Good evening. I would like to introduce to you one of our school council members, Sandy LaCasse. Come on down here, Sandy. She's been between here and getting to the ice rink to pick up her son. Sandy has served on our school council and as well as the middle school council. So as her students transition to the high school, she transitioned with them, which is great for us. She not only serves on the council, but she also is our note taker. So she is responsible for taking the notes and then disseminating to all members. And she does a fabulous job. And I'm going to give her a moment to say a few words.
Hi, I really enjoy being part of the school council. For anybody else that has never thought about doing it, it's a really good way to keep in touch with the pulse of what's going on at the different schools. You get the first information and you get the straight information. I really feel blessed to be able to be a part of it and to know the future comings and goings of what's going on. We get direct feedback from Amy right from school committee meetings. So we're able to hear directly. So if there's ever any questions on budgets or a little word out in the street, we're able to get the right answer and get it back out to the soccer field or the grocery store or whatever, which I feel like is a big part of the job, just making sure that people have the appropriate information or at least know where to find it, and we're able to tell them that. So it's really, I really enjoy it, and I look forward to any more meetings, so thank you.
Sandy, I just want to say thank you because a lot of times there are questions that are out there and people that don't know us because maybe we're not in school and classes, similar, kids' ages and stuff. So it's nice to know that there's that front line that with an educated information, so not a rumor mill that's spreading to someone that actually knows it straight from the admin. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sandy. Okay, next we have a overnight field trip request. Overnight or out of state, I believe, right?
No.
Oh, just overnight? Okay. Thank you.
We have an overnight field trip request. We have an overnight field trip request from Heather Doyle,
Yes.
and we also have one coming from the music department here at Bourne High School, and they've both been approved from central office.
Oh, you want me to
The
talk?
story, yeah, go ahead. Why don't you tell us about the overnight? Thank you.
So last year, actually for 2 years now, the Key Club has been attending DCON, which is the district conference in Springfield with other Key Clubs from around the New England area. Last year, I had the pleasure of taking 3 students. This year, we had 5. The president, vice president, treasurer, and then 2 delegates. So there's more of an interest now from the club to see the increase in students attending. It's the 8th, 9th, and 10th. We are going to be traveling to Springfield on a bus with members from Sturgis, East Sturgis West, Sandwich, Wareham, which is actually a new Key Club. That's actually our partner in the Key Club. It's Bourne, Wareham. And I believe Barnstable, and I'm not sure about Dennis yet. It's a great opportunity for the kids, like I said last year, to get to know other Key Clubs, not only from the Cape, because obviously it's a long trip up to Springfield, but also from the New England area. And unlike last year, we're actually going to be presenting a service project we did throughout the course of December, what we're calling the month of giving, where we did a coat drive, collecting coats from the students of Bourne High School, but also families. And then we donated them to a local dry cleaner to have them dry clean and then given to homeless shelters. And then we also made giving bags. We also donated them to homeless shelters as well. And we're going to be presenting that to the DCON to show the other Key Clubs what we've been working on throughout the course of this year. So that's something that the kids are really excited about, showing the other Key Clubs what we're doing because we really didn't do much last year in regards to to actually presenting what our two projects were. Yeah, it was definitely a learning experience, but we've been doing a lot more this year.
What does DCON stand for? Do you know?
District conference.
Okay. Any questions from the board?
How many key clubbers do you have right now?
Total about 40.
40, good, okay. So it sounds like you've got a good group that are getting really re-energized.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, I know a lot of kids want to go. It's just a financial commitment, but also they're going to be involved in getting ready for spring sports. Some of them are going to be committed to spring sports. And also it's the weekend before April vacation. A lot of them are not really.
Right, I remember last year there was an issue with the sports schedule for sure, yeah. But 5 over 3 is good, so we'll take that. Continue on.
Hope it next year for 10.
Yeah, pretty good.
Okay, anybody would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the Bourne Key Club, South State.
Oh, it's,
excuse me, overnight field trip, leadership workshop in Springfield from April 8th to April 10th. That's great.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none? 7-0. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Now we have a music program, overnight field trip. Christina Bourne.
Christine. Sorry, everyone does. I'm here on behalf of Lisa Fournier to present. We have a high school student, Abby Seva, who was selected to participate in the all-state choir. It's truly an honor to be. She had participated at the Southeast District level and then was recommended based on her score for that audition to be able to audition for all-state. Auditioned for all-state in January and was accepted into the festival. The students rehearse. I have a schedule of their rehearsal activities if anyone is interested. The students rehearse throughout the day Thursday and Friday, and then they participate in a concert on Saturday that actually takes place at Symphony Hall in Boston. They work under renowned conductors, and they get to work with students from all over the state. They stay in hotels in the Seaport area under, they're chaperoned actually by, Ms. Fournier will be going, and then they're chaperoned in the hotels by other music teachers that are on the state board and working to chaperone. It's a great experience for her and an honor for the music department, of course.
Very good. Looks like a pretty aggressive schedule. Wow.
It is a very aggressive schedule.
Congratulations to Abby Seva.
Great day, too.
Any other discussion?
No, it's the form type. So obviously, we're overnight, both require this kind of decision.
Yes.
Sometimes
Yes, so we do know that it is in state.
It's my mistake, and I didn't.
But because
we're
she
just trying to get
stayed
you guys to go on a state
overnight,
tournament.
we're here. It'll feel like we're worlds away, really.
Okay, would anybody like to make a motion? Okay, would you like to read a motion for us? Or do we have to? It's not overnight. Okay, it is overnight. Very good. All those in favor? Oh, excuse me, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? It's unanimous, 7-0.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, and say thank you to Ms. Warner too, please.
Yeah.
Okay, Superintendent LaMarche, next up is Program of Studies.
I'm actually going to toss it over to the principals who are presenting any program studies. Maybe I'll let Susan Seasman say a word or two if she'd like to before then. I didn't think so, but just as the principal's getting up to get to the podium to talk about their program of studies, you have an actual. I'm sorry, see, she does want to say something. Hold on.
You actually have copies. of the programs of studies, and I know that last week that both the high school and the middle school did have programs of studies with parents. And I see that Brian is up first for the middle school, and he'll be able to share some of the highlights.
And just one last thing, they will be posted on our website very shortly. So.
Thank you. I'm here tonight to present to you the Bourne Middle School Program of Studies for the upcoming school year 2016-2017. The program of studies that we're presenting tonight doesn't have a whole lot of changes from the program of studies that we had presented last school year. The middle school didn't make any proposals for new courses this school year. So all of the courses that we had last school year are continuing relatively in the same format as we're experiencing currently. The most significant change that you will probably note in the program of studies is actually an update to the course descriptions for our science classes, 5 through 8. Those course descriptions now reflect the updated science standards. So you'll see that the descriptions have moved from a content-specific to more of a spiral reflection in the science curriculum. So that is our most significant change. And there is one small edit, I think, in the copy that you have. On page 4, it actually lists the 2015-2016. So that has been updated for the 16-17 year. It actually just lists the testing that we'll experience in the upcoming school year. And I do want to thank Anne-Marie Strode, who helped us with the formatting of our documents. She helped us put it together looking so nice. And that's the program of studies for the middle school.
Sorry, I'm just taking some notes. Does the board have any questions regarding the program of studies middle school?
Thanks very much for that. I love this program of studies, both of them. In fact, it's just great it's a good reference document. So for parents that are watching and for community members that might not know what the schools offer, this is really easy to look through. It's not technical, it's not edu-speak, it's very accessible. It takes a lot of work to do it, but to do it well, and this is really done well. So I'm grateful for it, and I really appreciate it. Just real quickly about the science curriculum, you said that it spirals, so by that we need to say...
So we just had new science standards that are approved, so our teachers have been working on preparing for those new standards. We knew that they were coming down. So up until this point, we experienced science as like a content specific. So you would experience life science in 7th grade, you would experience earth science in 8th grade. So now our students will experience each of those topic areas throughout each of the grades. So there'll be a piece of life science, there'll be a piece of physical science, there'll be a piece of earth science that exists in each of those grades. So our teachers have been working to prepare that because they've been sharing content knowledge and resources and activities, and they've been adjusting to the new science standards. So these course descriptions reflect that change.
Okay, and obviously it's scaffolded in such a way that the same topic doesn't get, you don't have that sort of individual, obviously.
Yeah.
It's slightly built.
Right, yeah, no, it's been a very carefully scaffolded. Christine actually has done quite a bit of work with our science teachers. They actually spend their content area time kind of reviewing what they have done. From my perspective, it has going to be a positive change, particularly for our students that come from a military family, who, depending upon where our students come from, we have had students who potentially have experienced life science for 2 or 3 years, because if where they came from, did life science in 6th grade, and now we do life science in 7th grade, they could have received the same thing for multiple years. So that is actually going to, for our students, is going to be a positive change.
So So thanks very much to the teachers that were engaged in the curriculum rewriting. Again, for the layperson doesn't understand how much work goes in before you even teach, right? Before you engage with the students. So thanks very much.
Quite a bit. Our teachers were very hard on this document.
Thank you.
Just want to reiterate too that this will be online and be available on our school website, just because I think a lot of parents out there in the community really maybe they lost sight of how far the middle schools come. I mean, we have multi-year languages in the school, engineering, advanced math, algebra. These are at the middle school level, so coding, that's correct. I mean, just extraordinary things that are being offered there. So thank you very much.
Thank you. We did have a program of studies night that we actually did it joint with the high school last week, where we presented this to our 5th, 6th, and 7th grade families, and then our 8th grade families came for the high school presentation. It actually is a really nice evening. I think it highlights all of the work that we've done with the high school with these courses that we experience at both the middle school and high school level, and the ability to get credit for certain courses at the 8th grade level.
Thank you very much. Consent? Are we going to approve these individually?
Good evening. Our program of studies I did actually post it online under our quick links in preparation for our parent meeting last Thursday. And obviously with the caveat, there's a note in there indicating that it is for the school committee. Our program of studies has really come a long way over the past few years. We're excited about the program of studies and how it's set up this year for ease of use. We know that students are accessing it, we know that parents are accessing it, and we know the ease of use is the primary factor which determines how it's used and how often. So, and I was really excited to hear this weekend when I was here for the Drama Festival. We had parents and families here, students, and one young student from the middle school came over and said, oh, after that program of studies event that you did for the assembly for the 8th grade last week, I was online checking it out. It was really helpful, so we were really excited to get that feedback as well. We really did an overhaul program of studies last year, and this year we really focused on, again, the ease of use. We updated our pathway documents to reflect any changes, sequencing, things like that, as we've moved to providing biology for all freshmen. We've changed the sequencing in science courses, and that's affected the level at which students are taking science courses as this kind of what I call bubbles through the system. We've also decided this year to change the way in which we offer our elective offerings. We have a ton of elective offerings. I have to tell you, we have full-year elective offerings, half-year elective offerings. It really runs the gamut. We're so excited, and many of these offerings are proposed by students and supported by teachers, and we're really excited about that. But we do recognize that when we provide such an array of offerings, for example, if we provide 8 elective offerings in the history department, for example, when it comes time to run those courses and take a look at what students sign up for which courses, it becomes difficult in terms of which courses to run. This course has 15 students in it, this course has 10. And really to try to make those decisions and work with the students and provide them with the options that they want. So in response to that, and this has been an ongoing conversation among team leaders, among administrators, among teachers, and among students. So in response to those concerns, we just did decide to take our elective offerings and alternate the years in which they're offered. So we're still offering all of these options, but we're alternating the years in which they're offered so that we can assure that these courses are running, so that when students are electing these courses, we're saying we're going to provide them. So it just tightens up the system, and we're really excited about that. This year in the English department, we've been trying to move, especially for the 4th year of English and for seniors, move towards a format where seniors may elect to take an AP English course, an honors level course, but also expand those options into half-year elective courses, which we tried to do the prior year, but we only had a couple of options, so we have expanded those options. We've added 5 new semester course offerings to the English department, which include real-world communications, marketing, advertising, and PR, dystopian literature and technology and social media of today, Shakespeare then and now, a complete study of Shakespeare, the evolution of the tragic hero through literature and film, and cultural influences on American literature, all of which are directly tied to the frameworks. It's just a more in-depth examination, and we feel very confident that students will be drawn to these semester courses. They're designed to, give students the option to take a course for a semester, change it up second semester based on their interest. And it's something that we've been trying to move towards, and something that students have asked us for, and many other high schools do offer these courses. So we're excited to make that change this year. In math, we've made some changes with respect to the program of studies and our course offerings, primarily centered around the feedback that we received from college admissions. In 2011, we were notified that students were going to be expected to have a 4th year of math, which was a change back in 2011, and we do require all students to take 4 years of math at Bourne High School. Along with those changes, those recommendations more recently have come back that in terms of the coursework that we're offering here at Bourne High School, we decided to change what's now called advanced math, which is our pre-calculus class, and call it what it is, pre-calculus. That was based on feedback from directors of admissions. As you may be aware, in the fall we are flooded with admissions directors coming in, meeting with our students in small groups, introducing them to their colleges. But in that process, our guidance counselors get feedback, as well as our teachers, in terms of what's going to position our students best as they apply for admissions to four-year colleges. Again, a semantics change, but an important one. We also decided to take our business math course, which is a full-year course, and offer it as a half-year course this coming year. We're going to offer it as a half-year course and pair it with formerly known as personal finance. We've renamed that course to financial literacy. Same course, a little bit of a different name, again some feedback that we received to better position our students. It really communicated what our coursework is offering. Business math had prior been a 4th year of math for many seniors, but we are streamlining that process this year and really encouraging all of our students at minimum to take pre-calculus and use those courses as elective courses. They're great courses, students learn a lot, they give us great feedback, helps me balance my checkbook, helps me understand how to prioritize my money, my time, so forth. So we find value in those courses, but again, looking at those more not as core courses, but as elective courses for students. In science, there were no additional course offerings or changes made. The only difference is right now our seniors and juniors are vying for the same courses, as biology has moved the process up, as I mentioned the bubble earlier. So we're excited to have both sets of students, of classes, as you will, vie for these classes and expand those offerings as well. In social studies, we did the same thing as we did in the English department, where we did pair semester offerings alternating by year. We did add one additional new course, again, generated by student interest. It's a topic where, when they're discussing it in class, the students want to spend more time on this topic, but unfortunately, the teacher doesn't have that time. So, based on that feedback, they did create this new course called The Holocaust. So it'll include a study of the American genocide during World War I. It's just a more in-depth study, and the students are excited about that, as is the teacher. I have to say that when we were doing the course selection, when we had the assembly here in the auditorium, as well as the program of study night with the parents, I really encourage the team leaders to get up and promote their programs, because they're really excited, they can do a good job, and I have to say that their enthusiasm was definitely, it definitely played a big role in terms of communicating the new offerings and the existing offerings, both with the parents and with the students, and I just really want to give a note of thanks to them because they are doing a phenomenal job of really communicating these changes, the offerings, and really just excited about their content and their coursework, and really sending that message to the students. This is exciting, this is fun, think about this is great, try something new. So I really want to thank the team leaders for their efforts as well. Those were really the major changes, other than the design of the program of studies and adding those new courses. Any questions?
Thank you, Ms. Setner. I think one of the things I love the most about the program of studies for the high school are the pathways. Because I think it, connects that student who does know what they want to be when they grow up, see the value in that education and connect it with their future. And it's helpful for the student who doesn't want to know what they want to be when they grow up and has an interest in something and can actually explore that interest and see the connection to their future. So I love that about this. The other thing I want to mention is that Ms. Setner did present the additional courses at our curriculum subcommittee, and we were in full support of those additions. And I love that it's student generated, that students who have this interest, who are motivated, can have the opportunity, and that teachers can give them that opportunity to explore those studies even more. So, thank you.
Yeah, the only other thing I think thanks about the pathways is because this is year 3 or 4 for the pathways now.
Year 3.
Year 3. Yeah, they're even kind of evolving over the last couple of years. Love the questions that are related to each pathway. Do you like to do this? How about that? You might be interested in this. Check out these courses. In addition to a much more conventional model for here's the English department, here's the sequence, and here's all the courses in English, and here's the descriptions, and here's for humanities and history, and on, right? So I really appreciate it. It definitely makes it easier for parents. I'm really impressed that it's such a small school, but large enough to have a wide range of offerings. And I think it's genius to alternate them year in, year out, so that everybody can take advantage of those, and you can increase the capacity of the teacher to reach more students in those subject areas and those electives. That's just awesome. And then, kudos to everybody who sort of came to consensus on that being a good way forward. I really appreciate it. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Just being on the curriculum committee also, I really appreciated hearing the opportunity and the enthusiasm about having these creative opportunities for people, and how it does tie right into all of the expectations of the frameworks. But the enthusiasm is contagious, and I always end up leaving those meetings not really feeling like I contributed an awful lot, but I sure go away excited about it. And I can't believe that such a small school can have so many offerings, but it's because of the resourcefulness and because of encouraging teachers and students to have these dialogues to come up with some interesting things. That just lights everybody's fire. So thank you.
One more quick question. Do you find, because this is a great tool for students, do you find that students are using it and know the value of referencing this as a tool when they begin their study course selections, or do you find that it's more teacher-directed, they look at the teachers more for the next steps?
That's a great question. As I mentioned, there was a middle school student who mentioned to me that she went on and she was looking. When we do our presentation, I do, in my PowerPoint. I do link to these documents, so I actually, while I was presenting the PowerPoint, which is also online, so if there are parents who are listening to this right now and they want to check it out online, I've actually posted both the grade 9 PowerPoint as well as the grade 9, grade 8, I should have said. And then the current grade 9, 10, 11, those PowerPoints, they're a little bit different. There are a little different options. For the freshmen, we did hone it in on really, so it didn't get too cumbersome and too confusing. We really honed in on what they can take. So it's hyperlinked directly to these documents, to the pathways, to the course sequencing, right down to the ECEP program. All of those things are linked right to the document. So we really did stress to the students that this isn't just death by PowerPoint. It's somewhat, interactive in terms of taking you to those links and getting you that insight. If you're interested in the ECEP program, click on it. If you're interested in our School to Careers program, earning credit for work, click on it, check it out. So, and Heather Baldick, who is in charge of the the School to Careers program came, we invited her down, and she really generated some excitement as well. So again, this is a resource for parents to use as well as students. We do make a few photocopies, like a handful of photocopies, and put them in the library. As students are rotating in and out of the library, they might be in directed study. It gives them an opportunity. Some students just like that tangible, document to go through, and that's fine. But in terms of facilitating communication, even though we've gone on to an online scheduling process with Power School and we're really digitized, we still want to maintain those personal connections and that personal feedback. So we still have maintained that course selection day. We don't call it course selection day, we call it teacher recommendation day really now, because it's an opportunity for students to travel from class to class, and they're not only getting their recommendations for the upcoming year, they're also able to ask questions about the elective course offerings, and their teachers in those departments, because they have every single class that day, is able to give them that feedback and answer their questions, and if not, get back to them with those answers. So it's just a really nice opportunity. It was something actually Melissa started, and then we jumped on board. And Melissa and I coordinate a lot of our events together, which I think really helps families, because by coordinating that night together, Melissa started doing that last year. It's great because some families have 1 foot in each door. So it gives them an opportunity to come to Melissa's, presentation at 5, and then come to, and then come to ours at 6, and I just find that has increased the attendance as well. Students do tell us they use this online resource, but I know I'm giving you a very, very long-winded answer to your very quick question. But again, I think it's Mrs. Ryan and I working together. Sorry, doing that to you, don't I? I know, Mrs. Ryan. And I working so closely together in terms of coordinating these events, it just streamlines the process so that they know what to expect in middle school. It's the same thing in the high school, and I think the expectation makes it a little bit easier in the long run.
A quick question, does the dual enrollment let me just make sure I heard you correctly, we're now doing 4 years of math?
Yes, we are.
And I noticed in the dual enrollment it still says three credits of mathematics.
3 credits of mathematics is required for graduation purposes, but all of our students are scheduled for 4 years of math.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Long or short? Thank you, Ms. Evans. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, I was
If I could just add one more thing. For the committee and for the administration, I really appreciate the comments of the committee, because you've seen over the past couple of years the progress of this on our path to continuous improvement. I am also happy to announce to you today that next year we will have a program of studies for elementary school. MSBA has assisted us in that process, so we're going to take advantage of the work that we've done for MSBA, and we're going to work on an elementary program of studies for next year as well. So then we'll have a program of studies for all of our schools.
What an excellent segue. I would ask if the committee didn't mind, since we're hard time, we cannot start our budget hearing before 7:30, we have a few minutes, that we might just take the agenda a little bit out of order and go to item number 7, which is the MSBA School Building Committee decision versus with respect to grade division. And this is a deliberation purpose only. It's something that we put on the agenda. I know you guys, the group has had an opportunity, if you look in the chat, some of the other information we received during the week from the superintendent. And I'm going to actually ask him to speak to this in a little while. But really, the impetus to this is that the school building group, the committee that's been charged with developing the school building, and making a decision has a variety of options. And we're really coming down to the wire. There's really only two meetings, actual school building meetings coming up in front of us during the month of March. And then the first meeting, April 7th, is when that school building committee has to decide on a particular option in preparation to deliver this as we're following a preset timeline by the Massachusetts School Building Authority. Very good organization in that they're going to pay half of the building, so they're very good. Now, one of the issues that we have is some of the options, particularly one option includes incorporating the 5th grade in the elementary school. And as you're aware, the target of this school building is for a new elementary school to support or replace the People School. And in doing so, we have one other options do not include that. And really, the school building committee, as I'm a member of, and Rich McLean is a member of as well, one of my partners up here, we get an understanding that that group really is looking for a bit of guidance or maybe some understanding with respects to that transition, whether or not that transition should occur at the 4th grade, as it does now, at the 5th grade as it does now, or at the 6th grade. I'm talking about when they migrate on, when the students migrate on to middle school. So I'd ask maybe the superintendent to speak to this a little bit, and then maybe we could deliberate, at least discuss, have some ideas or some thoughts about this. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, the school committee, I first want to go over a couple of dates that are extremely important. If I mess up at all, I'm very lucky to have Mr. Ed Donahue to my right here who will answer any questions. He won't allow misinformation from my mouth to stay in place. He will correct me along the way. Unfortunately, the community...
Do you want a microphone just in case?
Unfortunately, the community will not see this recording until probably after, but tomorrow evening we have our community forum. It's not the last community forum as we continue to progress, but we have been on a sharp timeline, and that's actually community forum number 5. That's the 5th time that we have reached out to the community for feedback regarding this project moving forward. We have a 6th community forum, which is March 31st, at Bournedale Elementary School from 6 to 8 p.m. So I want to make sure that people have that down as information. In addition, we have school building committee meetings that meet at the Bourne Veterans Memorial Community Center, and that's open to the public. Those are not closed meetings. They are televised. We have them televised. The next one after tomorrow evening is March 10th. We have a meeting March 10th at the school, at the Bourne Veterans Memorial Community Center, and that is to review and prepare for our work where we are going to have to identify a preferred schematic design moving forward as a school building committee. Then we also have a meeting March 24th for the school building committee. And then we also have an April 7th meeting for the school building committee meeting. All 3 of those meetings are at the Bourne Veterans Memorial Community Center. Some of them start at 7, some start at 6. We do advertise and post these. You can find all this information on the town website. The town website has all of this information in detail for it. Now, to add some clarity, we're the school building committee, which is comprised of a cross-section. It's really a town committee. It's not a school committee group. It's a town committee, which has representation from the community, from the school committee, from administration, and other individuals. We've really narrowed it down to 4 choices at this point in time. One choice is a K through 4 elementary school on the south side of the bridge, or near the current People's Elementary School. A second option is a K through 5 school in the same location, near the People's Elementary School. A third option is a pre-K through 4 school for all students on the Bournedale or the north side of the canal. So that means putting an addition on Bournedale and having all elementary students pre-K through 4 attend that building or that school. And then the last option is a renovation of the current Peebles property. So those are really the 4 options. The first 2 options are brand new construction, not renovating Peebles Elementary School. So just to repeat them one more time, the school building committee has narrowed down the choices. A new elementary school K through 4 near the Peebles site. A new elementary school K through 5 near the current Peebles Elementary School site. A pre-K through 4 addition to Bournedale Elementary School to have all pre-K through 4 students attend one school in the community of Bourne. And a K through 4 renovation of the current Peebles Elementary School. Those are the 4 options at this point in time. Steve, did I just speak to
I just wanted to make sure, reiterate too, that throughout this entire process, as Superintendent LaMarche has been discussing, is that the options that were faced, we had many options. I want to say there was at one point 14 different options that we whittled down based on a variety of factors. But the MSBA firmly believes that the community's viewpoints are, as well as the school building firmly believes the community's input and viewpoints are critical to this process. So absolutely, from the baseline, there's always the option of what if we just fix the current school as it is. And so we've continued looking at that. There have been other options that we've also looked at. I know that the community members have expressed some interest in taking a look at what Sandwich and Mashpee did about actually eliminating the school and moving students to different, maybe moving 7 and 8 in the high school and so on. We exercised and looked at those options as well, very, very carefully, looking at the current needs of the schools, the student population we have, the growth that we perceive, or the maintenance of the students that we have now, what's best for the teaching environment we have in Bourne as a community. And so I just want to reiterate that this has been a very, very robust process that's governed by the rules of the MSBA, but in addition to that, by the community input and the spirit of the Bourne School Building Committee. Mr. Chairman, School Committee, as well, there will be a survey that's coming out for the entire community. It's not just for parents of school-aged children. It's for all members of the community to answer questions. And in there, it's about 6 questions, and there are questions very specific to priorities, as well as other capital projects within the community of Bourne. We will advertise when it is open. We're going to present it tomorrow evening, which, again, you'll be seeing this after that fact. We're presenting it as a draft tomorrow evening. But we will be identifying what dates it will be open. It will be on Survey Monkey, and we will certainly ask anybody and everybody. We'll try to get advertised in the newspapers because we do need that feedback, and we're looking for that feedback for, at a minimum, our March 24th meeting as a school building committee, but also our last forum meeting on March 31st to really add to the decision-making of the school building committee at that point in time. I have to be perfectly clear to everybody. What it's coming down to is a couple of things. It's only coming down to a couple of factors that really need to be deliberated and really need to be decided by the school building committee with the input of everybody and anybody. Again, please offer input. It's coming down to, do you support 5th grade coming out of the middle school and being in an elementary school in a new construction project near the current Peebles site, which in turn means that after 4th grade at Bournedale, students would go to a 5th grade in that particular school and then transition to the middle school. That's one factor. The other factor is cost, the total cost of the project. Is there a savings in renovation versus new construction? It's going to come down to those decisions. We know that cost is a factor. And then the last one is location, north and south of the canal. 2 elementary schools, 1 elementary school. Those are really the 3 factors that the school building committee has to really deliberate, but we need your input. Call anybody on the school building committee, attend the meetings, voice your opinion, because we are looking for it and need your input. So I just wanted to share those particular factors at this point in time. Okay, and my suggestion too would be that if we could just table the deliberation on this until after the hearing, if it's okay, give us a few minutes, because I think we're coming up against our start time. Okay, then item number 6, Superintendent LaMarche's annual budget hearing. I would like to begin that. I'll just take a moment for the school committee to recess to the, or at least move on over to the auditorium so we can get a good view. Thank you.
You didn't invite us to sit. I did. As I stumble, not to take a chair.
Just to let people know, there is a handout up at the, with the agenda and some other materials on your way into the auditorium. Good evening. We're going to open up the public hearing regarding the budget, FY17 budget. I'm going to present information as to how we arrived at the FY17 budget. There is approximately 36 slides in this PowerPoint. I will be covering all of them. Some of them are very detailed, and I will only cover certain aspects of them. This is probably the only time that I sit here at this table all alone. This whole budget process is a very extensive process that we go through. It's not an independent, it's not something I create in my office, it's not something that I create at home, it's not even something that I let my kids mess around with, but this is something that we really truly collaborate on together as a group. And we are very excited once again to present this to the school committee and to the community in this public hearing. Please note that the decision on the final number is not this evening. The decision on the budget is not this evening. The decision is actually closer to the April 6th meeting when the school committee will decide where they stand. So feedback, again, is appreciated and welcome with the information and detail that is provided. Okay, so the agenda this evening for me is to present information that's associated with developing an FY17 fiscal year budget. Please understand that Bourne Public Schools does not discriminate on the basis of race, color, age, sex, gender, identity, religion, national origin, sexual orientation, disability, or homelessness. The agenda this evening is for me to present, again, the pathway, which is developed through the strategic plan, the district improvement plan. Then I'm going to talk about 365 budget planning, FY16 budget reductions, FY16 restorative budget, FY17 budget framework, FY17 budget priorities and concessions, and then obviously there's opportunities for questions. So it all starts with the strategic plan. As you recall, the Center for District and School Accountability from the Department of Elementary and Secondary Education was in our district. And they provided us with extensive feedback regarding our strategic planning and our district improvement planning processes. They really believe that that helps generate our pathway and where we go as a district and what we provide. Obviously, we know that all of our work is centered around students, but do we have a plan in place? Do we have an improvement plan that's associated with that? So again, I won't cover all the information that's in all of these documents, but I think what's extremely important for me to cover is the superintendent's message within the strategic planning document. Keep in mind the strategic planning document is very specific to how you develop a district improvement plan. It's the processes and the components that are important to it. It involves what our schools are about, our mission, our vision, our core values, our guiding themes, and then our school committee objectives, which helps develop our goals. The superintendent's message in the strategic plan, which lends itself to the budget process, is the future for our students, parents, caregivers, staff, and the community will bring its own mix of successes and challenges. But our direction is clear, and we know what we must do. We must have the courage to focus intently on placing students at the heart of everything we do. We must provide the best teaching service and most comprehensive learning solutions available to all of our students. We must commit ourselves to evolve with the changing needs of our students by determining what we can control as an educational community. Through our collaborative, deliberate effort in strategic and improvement planning, we control the objectives and the goals. As we then review and analyze our outcomes through reflective practices, we will model the resolve to identify calculated adjustments and make a difference for every student in the Bourne Public Schools. Keep in mind, our students' successes, in turn, are our successes. I think that is a great introduction to the budget process and to what we do. Keep in mind, the student is at the center of what we do. We have to make adjustments. Change is hard. We understand that. But our students are changing continuously. Our state is changing continuously. Our federal government is changing continuously. Our needs are changing continuously. So from there, what we do is we develop a district improvement plan, and the district improvement plan will help guide us through all of the work that we need to do as a school district, including budget planning. Again, I'm not going to go through each and every one of these, But what are the guiding themes around student achievement? What's the initiative? What's helping us with our budget process when we analyze what we're doing budgetarily? It's really curriculum articulation improvement. How do we improve what we're teaching our students and what our students are learning? Assessment. How are we assessing our students and how they're progressing? Are we progress monitoring our students? And we utilize a formative assessment. Science, technology, engineering program update. You heard earlier this evening with program of studies that we have next generation or new science standards that we're incorporating within our instruction. Again, these are our improvement, this is our improvement plan. These are the things that we're focusing on. Mathematics professional development. As you know, we rolled out a brand new elementary curriculum, Eureka Math. RTI implementation. How do we respond to our students? How do we progress monitor our students and respond to them when they are struggling academically? Teacher induction and mentoring program. As you know, as a school committee, we rolled this out this year, a new program around teacher mentoring. And partnerships, how are we developing partnerships? And what are our resources? What resources do we have available? District culture, very important to us. We know that our culture is reflected and processed by our students. Our students end up being a reflection of our culture as a district. In the school building program, we know we just talked a few minutes ago about the mass school building project for Cleveland's elementary school. So now I'm going to get into what does the budget planning look like. The path of budget planning for us is we're on a path of continuous improvement. We've talked about this for years now. We have to face the fact that we have to be on a path of continuous improvement. We have to appreciate that, respect it, and embrace it. So our 365 budget planning is very easy to interpret. It means that our budget planning is a 365-day process. It doesn't stop. It doesn't begin, it doesn't end. Oftentimes you'll hear me refer to budget season. That only means that there are certain requirements and things that need to be done. But the budget planning and budget process is really 365 days a year. It's because we're on a path of continuous improvement. We need to be increasingly efficient and flexible with confidence and optimism. It needs to be at the heart of our budget planning. Our budget planning shapes the many important, difficult budgetary decisions we make. We know we can't have everything. We know that going into it. And we deliberate and we have very deep discussions around our budget planning process and what we can and cannot afford. We must improve our core capabilities and strengths to increase the value of education we provide our students. We sit back and we all know, from the superintendent on down, or from down all the way up to the superintendent, that we can always improve. We can always improve. So what's the root of the 365 planning? What do we pay attention to 365 days a year? We analyze revenue sources and risks to funding. We work on this tirelessly in our office. What are our revenue sources? What money can we take in as a district? What money can the town afford? What does it cost to educate our students? What are the risks involved with it? What are the pitfalls involved with funding? We also scrutinize allocations of funds through budget priorities. We identify priorities. We have a priorities that goes in a very positive direction, and we also have a priorities list that goes in a very negative direction. Meaning changing funding in a negative fashion means that our priorities change. We have to plan for either or. We don't just plan for one way. Review fiscal governance and stewardship. We know that we are responsible for the community of Bourne. We're not just responsible for the Bourne Public Schools, we're responsible to every taxpayer in this community. We can be good stewards of the finances for this community, for this school district, in recognition of the governance of our community. Establish responsible economic practices. These are good examples of this. A RASP, Reclaimed Appropriation Control Program, that we've been doing for years. Another one is cost savings initiatives that we've been doing for years. What can we continue to target and identify as ways to save money in our district, to take out of our operating funds? Again, we know there's not an endless pool of money. We have to be responsible, but we also have to develop responsible economic practices within our district. Establish accurate and complete fiscal reports. That's part of the RAS process. On a regular basis, you're reviewing every line by line, And you're projecting. You're establishing accurate and complete fiscal reporting. And you're presenting line item transfers to the school committee. Review data points, indicators for short-term and long-term priorities. What we mean by this could be a number of things. They're data points. So an example could be the number of students that are referred for initial evaluations in special education. It could be the number of students who qualify for Title I services in our district. It could be the number of students who drop out of our schools. It could be the number of students who are disciplined in our schools. It could be how our students perform on state mandated testing. It could be how our students perform on progress monitoring or formative assessment within our classroom. It could be any number of data points that we look at, 365 days a year. It could be enrollment, it could be school choice. Collaborate and listen to ideas, comments, and questions from students, teachers, parents, and community leaders. We always have to have our ears open. We always have to listen to what is out there. What is the interest of the community? What is the interest of our students? What is the interest of our teachers? What is the interest of our school committee? We always have to incorporate that into our 365 budget planning. Meet requirements of local, state, federal initiatives and regulations. As we've presented in years past, this has become overbearing and overwhelming in every single way. Not just for a public school system, but for small businesses, for anybody and everybody out there. This is not just felt by us, but it's something that we have to do on a regular basis. We have to meet the requirements. And then through all of that, we have to mitigate competing interests through a long-view perspective. In other words, we know that people want certain things. We know that some things are best for our students. How do we balance that on short-term, long-term? And we have to do it by looking at the long view. What is sustainable is really the word for me. Our decisions have to be around sustainability and trying to provide what's best for our students moving forward. So that's really the budget planning process, which is, again, I call it a 365 budget planning process. Now, looking at the big picture of our finances, this is usually a slide that's a little bit later, but I figured I'd show this up front at this point in time. FY17 budget picture, big picture. Our FY16 budget was $28,779,994, which was approved last May at the annual town meeting. We know through the failed Proposition 2.5 override, we've had approximately $350,779 reduced in our budget for this fiscal year, which gives us a final FY16 budget of $20,529,215. Looking at all of our contractual obligations moving forward, we still have some contracts that are pending, but we believe this figure represents not only the contracts that we have to negotiate, but also any contractual obligations we have, whether it's through vendors, through bus contracts. We think 56449 represents that in a very healthy manner. Our FY17 minimum administrative recommended budget to the town administrator, which was prior to the Christmas holiday, was $21,042,445. Looking at our entire budget now preliminarily, which is really the presentation this evening, we think with the 556,449 added to it, we think that our budget for FY17 is more appropriately placed, and that admin recommended $21,085,664, which is a $43,219 increase from what was originally recommended prior to all of our detailed work around budget planning. We know when we do budget planning, when we're just looking at contractual obligations, which is a big ticket item, we know that we still have priorities with the work that we do. How do we prioritize the needs of our students? We look at that through a process of establishing a list of priorities, which you'll see. And we end by looking at what it would qualify for a Tier 1 priority. What do we really believe that we're going to recommend to the school committee and to this community as a necessity moving forward? And we believe that that value is $431,000. And again, you'll see that detail in a bit. If we're already asking for $556,449 in contractual obligations, we know fiscally, being fiscal conservatives, but also being fiscally prudent for the community of Bourne, that we cannot add an additional $431,000 to that request. or get close to $1 million request. We administratively don't feel that that's appropriate. Would we love that? Absolutely. Would we say no if you offered it to us? Absolutely not. So what we do through our budgetary process, again, with the prioritization up or down, we know that we can identify some concessions to help mitigate that tier 1 increase to our fiscal budget. It's not without pain. Concessions aren't throwaways. This is our budget prioritization process that we've done from year to year. Concessions mean that they are less important than a tier 1 recommendation moving forward. That's our recommendation. You may feel differently. You may not like it. But that's what we believe to bring to you to school committee. And again, you'll see the detail for that. That provides a variance of roughly around $29,000. Meaning we've identified more concessions, the value of concessions, than that we did in tier 1. That only provides a little buffer of around $29,000 for any influx within our tier 1 and the concessions that we've identified. Okay, so looking at our fiscal year budgets over the years, and I've said this and I presented this to Finance Committee, to you as a school committee, there's a part of me that's very proud of this, that I feel that we've really worked hard, we've really been fiscally sound as a school district. When I was hired in 2010, it was one of the #1 priorities upon my hiring, was to move to a fiscally sound district. Then the other part of me says, am I doing enough to advocate for the Bourne Public Schools? Because it's a surprise to me to look at a 6-year span and our total budget increase is 1.6%, or $355,000, $356 if you would like to round it up. I think it's pretty remarkable. Again, I'm very proud of it, but are we doing enough? And I think we're in a position now where when we're asking and recommending something, and we're asking for certain things, and they have value to them, there's certainly meaning behind it. There's certainly value behind it. And there certainly should be in this community trust behind the request as well. This particular slide I like, and I share, and I've worked a little bit harder on this because I wanted to make more sense from year to year. I think people have struggled with this when they take a look at it. What this slide really represents is obviously a bunch of lines that go up and down. But what it really represents is where we are fiscally for Bourne Public Schools, where the town of Bourne is, and this is the new piece that I put in. I didn't look at the overall budget for the town of Bourne. I just identified the GFOB, the General Fund Operating Budget for the town of Bourne. We also looked at the Upper Cape Tech budget and increases in assessment to the town. And then we've also identified the shared cost increases to the town. So let me try to add a little more specificity to that. The blue line clearly represents the Bourne Public Schools, which is roughly the 1.6% increase over time from 2011. Now, please note that I made this, to provide this data in the best interest, I leveled everyone in 2011 with a starting point. I could go back years, I chose not to do that. I started in 2011, which is the fiscal year that I inherited coming in here. And then I started from that point. The blue line clearly represents the Bourne Public Schools. 2012, we had a major reduction. 2013 fiscal year, we had a nice increase. 2014, 15, lower increases. 2016, this past year, we've already seen, we reduced our budget by $350,000, and now we're asking for $556. Looking at Upper Cape Tech, because we are consistently, and I'm not saying that it's wrong, but we are lumped together as one school payment for the community of Bourne. We know over time, we knew that there was a large bump in our assessment to Upper Cape Tech. That was for the fiscal year 2015. Keep in mind that the assessment from Upper Cape Tech follows the year after the students are enrolled. We identified that there would be somewhat of a correction to that process over time, and you're seeing it now. You're seeing that their increases have come down. Shared cost is this other entity that is shared between the town and the schools when it comes to health insurance and other benefits. That whitish line is strictly the increase to shared costs over time. Now, the town of Bourne, GFOB, General Fund Operating Budget, is a reflection of the town budget minus the school budget, increases or decreases, minus the Upper Cape assessment, minus the shared cost. Why I saved it for last. It represents the town of Bourne's budget. Again, I want to be clear. The red line is less the school budget, less Upper Cape, less shared cost. This is a good reflection. In education, one of the things we really work hard with our students and staff is not to compare each other. But I think at one point in time you have to have one form of comparison somewhere along the line. This represents where Bourne fits with the rest of the Cape schools for percentage increases starting with FY12. Bourne Public Schools, with our increase of 2.6% this fiscal year, 556, represents a 1.6% increase since FY12. The next one is Sandwich at 6.8, Falmouth at 10.8 over the same period of time, Mashpee 13.2 over the same period of time, Wareham 13.9 over the same period of time, Barnstable 14.9 over the same period of time. Very important data points. 365. FY16, I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page regarding FY16 reductions. In order to get into FY16, when we asked the town meeting last May for our budget, these were reductions, the above, pre-FY16 concessions, pre-2.5 override. These were concessions we made to try to balance the budget last year. We cut a full-time literature teacher, a full-time technology ESP, a full-time network administrator, and a full-time custodian. That was before May 2015, before we had the budget improved. Post-failed 2.5 override, how did that impact us again? We lost a shared network administration with the town of Bourne. We lost a full-time software integration manager. We lost a technology ESP and a .2 elementary ESP. Again, that's right around the FY16 budget planning process. This is all important as we get into FY17 and what FY17 looks for us. If you recall in past years, I used to call this the budget story. What is the story? What is the budget telling us? What is the story telling us? These are the positions that were restored in FY16. I want to thank the community of Bourne. I want to thank the Finance Committee, the Board of Selectmen, the School Committee, to give us some reprieve from the reductions that we faced and identify priorities in our district that were important to the function and the operation of our district. This including adding an ESP, a guidance counselor at the middle school, elementary health teacher, circuit breaker liaison, adding back some supplies expenses, fuel for buses, parent transportation, and then legal fees. Going into FY17, getting more now into the budget planning again and the budget framework. What are our offsets? These are offsets within our budget. We identify these. We've been identifying these over the years in our budget planning. They are color-coded in the large spreadsheet or the small spreadsheet that you have. You'll see from FY15, 16, and 17, you'll see that we've had an increase in our offsets. You'll see the fluctuation as to where they've increased, where they've come from, and where they haven't. RASP, you'll see RASP, that's the Reclaimed Appropriation Control Program. In previous years, when we first started here, we were able to reclaim funds to help offset some of our collaborative tuitions moving through fiscal year, but our margins for reclaiming appropriations have become so minor that they actually just pay for some of the overruns in some accounts. And so they are part of our annual fiscal management, but there is no value at the end to help offset our collaborative tuitions, which means we actually had to add that value back into our budget, if you think about it. You'll see that school choice has certainly been a process for us. I think, when you look at military mitigation, the reason why it is reflected here, even though everybody here should know that we did not receive it last year, The reason it's reflected here is because we were saving it from one fiscal year and spending it the next fiscal year. We were not spending it in the same fiscal year. So it allowed us to have a 1-year gap in those offsets. So this sheet doesn't really reflect that the community of Bourne lost over $700,000 in military mitigation in 1 year. It doesn't show it or reflect it because of our fiscal management. Because when we first received it back in 2012, fiscal year 2012, we didn't run out and spend it. So that's why it is reflected in this offset sheet. It's been reflected in every one of our budgets. Cost saving initiatives, again, this is extremely integral part of our budget planning process. Some of these are repeats over time. What this really is this identifies ongoing costs that we've been able to pull out of our operating funds. Right now, we're a little over $500,000, which means on an annual basis, we've been able to remove some of these by some of these initiatives, cost-saving initiatives. Remember from year to year, we talked about these. So if you start at the top, some of these have happened. But keep in mind, we're proud of the fact that this is removed from our recurring costs on an annual basis. Some of the bottom ones are stuff that we're still working on. So for example, when we look at new gas heating multi-year contract, we actually, Mr. Donahue actually negotiated a contract that pays less than what we were paying at the time for a couple of years. When we look at Wi-Fi across our schools, we reduced, and this was part of, it's cost savings, but this was part of our Prop 2.5 override, failed override reduction, but we know recurring costs, we reduced our cellular services in our district by $6,000 on an annual basis. We're looking to upgrade the management system, the energy management system at Bourne Middle School. We know we're working closely with CVAC. For that, we know that that's going to be an annual savings for us. We had, for the first time in a number of years, we had all the steam traps surveyed and replaced at People's Elementary School, which has helped save money within that building around heating costs. And this summer, we're looking at changing the lights in the Bourne High School auditorium as well as some hallways for some more savings. Again, an important part of our budget process is cost-saving initiatives. What do we do to try to recapture funds that have been allocated in operating expenses from year to year that we know will help us in the process of being on that path of continuous improvement? So what does the Bourne Public Schools fiscal year FY17 framework look like? We identified the maintenance of effort. I've already identified that for you. It's $556,449. That's all of our contractual obligations moving forward. That is what we believe will meet our contractual obligations. Now, obviously, we haven't finalized 2 contracts that I mentioned. We're going to honor, because those will be negotiated in good faith, we'll honor the results of those. If it goes up or goes down, we'll honor that. If it goes up, we'll have to identify more concessions. We understand that. We're not sitting here saying that it's going to be 556 and no more. We're not saying that. But we believe that that represents our contractual obligations moving forward. And if it doesn't, again, we'll have to identify more concessions to meet what was negotiated in good faith. What are our budget priorities? Again, an ongoing list that it gets adjusted. Our entire list of budget priorities is $691,000. Again, we know with the community of Bourne, we're not going to add $691,000 to a fiscal year budget. Therefore, requesting $1.1 million. So we have to identify our budgetary concessions. We've identified through priorities what our concessions could be going into FY17 without compromising teaching and learning within our district. So then we have to go back and reprioritize our priorities. If we can only identify $460,000, we're not going to put forth $691,000. We have to identify and reprioritize what are our priorities moving into the fiscal year that we want to recommend to you as a school committee and to the community. So therefore, it ends up with a value of $21,085,664. So what are our FY 365 budget priorities? What have we heard over 365 days? What have we learned over 365 days? Keep in mind, when we're talking about 365 days, we're not talking about intimate conversations from day to day. We're talking about over time. We know that our behavior and our understanding as human beings is built over time, is built over patterns, is built over data. The budget priorities approach creates a strategic framework for the investment decisions in learning and teaching for Bourne Public Schools. This prioritization is used to guide our budget proposal to the Bourne School Committee and then to communicate that budget to the public. What are our priorities? You'll notice that there is an asterisk next to some of these. Some of that was part of the restorative budget. So some of that, I want to be clear that we've identified these as ongoing priorities in our budget. It's not as simple as getting in the restorative budget and saying that we have it for life. We want to keep identifying it as a priority for us for Bourne Public Schools. So the Bourne Middle School Guidance Council is a priority. And these are in order. A teacher of specialized instruction and special education at Bourne High School for post-secondary transition. We have a number of students that are aging between 18 and 22. By law, we're required to educate all students from 18 to 22 who are identified with disabilities and requiring that type of program. We know we have a number of students, and it's a program that we need to start. And we need to keep our students within our community. We have an elementary school health and wellness teacher. Pre-K through 4 curriculum director. This was in our FY16 budget. This was a position we did not fill with the risk of the 2.5 override failing. The 2.5 override failed. We knew we had to reduce our budget by $350,000, so we did not fill that position. We are bringing it back again as a priority. With the major math resource, with the major writing resources, with all the work we're doing curriculum-wise, we continue to need assistance and direction at the pre-K through 4 level. We've identified a career dropout prevention credit recovery teacher at Bourne High School. With this one, I want to remind you that over the years, we've reduced a number of staff members at Bourne High School. If you look at the budget spreadsheet, you'll identify that from the fiscal years that are identified on that spreadsheet. Now we're identifying needs that we have at our school. If one student drops out of Bourne High School, we're too small a district. If one student drops out of Bourne High School, we've lost. If one student only requires a recovery course, credit recovery course during the school year to move from grades 9 to 10, we should be providing that. Our students need a greater connection to career. We do have someone who's working on internships, but this is an actual instructional position. We've heard that many of our graduates have identified their future based off of career planning and career coursework that they've done prior to in Bourne High School, in a position that was eliminated a number of years ago. We believe that one person can try to do all of these things for us, for the betterment of our students at Bourne High School. We've identified an elementary learning coach, very specific to RTI, response to what I call instruction. It's commonly known as response to intervention. I had a former colleague of mine said, I don't know how you respond to an intervention. You're actually responding to instruction, which is an intervention. So I use response to intervention. We believe with the number of students that we have and the students' needs that we need someone to assist classroom teachers who are really focused on the instruction, teaching, and learning, to assist them in building embedded professional development around response to intervention, or what you'll hear commonly called Tier 1 and Tier 2 interventions. We've also identified admin, DESE, state reporting. As you recall, we did have a software integration manager who did all of our state reporting. We believe this is a method to meet the requirements of state reporting without bringing back a software integration manager. We also have professional development for major mathematics resource because we're expanding it. We've had great success at the elementary level for grade 5. We're actually expanding to grade 6 next year. And the last item is the New England Association of Schools and Colleges, or NEASC. We are due for our accreditation process next year. But we have to identify a value. This is not new information to you as a school committee for the community. This is something that we've identified for a couple of years now in preparation for. So the natural question is, what's the value of all these things? So the guidance counselor is $49,470. Teacher of special education at the high schools, we always budget $65,000. It's right around the master's 6 step, master's 5 step. We always budget around that. Obviously, if there's some savings in there, we will look for it, but our job is to hire the best and the brightest teacher to teach students in Bourne. Teacher of health and wellness, pre-K through 4 curriculum director, teacher for credit dropout career, elementary learning coach, admin, guest and student reporting. We believe we have an $8,000 fix for somebody who did this a little bit more of a full-time position at over $80,000 as an administrator. Professional development for major math resources, and then the NEASC accreditation is roughly, we're budgeting $28,000. We obviously hope it's less than that, but we want to be on the right side of that. Now, as I mentioned earlier, there was $691,000 in priorities. These were the ones that made to Tier 2, ended up in Tier 2. Early college experience program for our students. Professional development for the writing process pre-K through 6. Building-based professional development. A 1.0 full-time kindergarten teacher. An actual dropout prevention program, an evening program for our students. We identified this last year as a priority. We're still identifying this as a priority moving forward. A full-time equivalent central office data clerk, and grounds and maintenance full-time person to assist us with our grounds. What were the values of these? Roughly $260,000. Again, these are not part of our recommendation, but it gives you the long view, it gives you what we're looking at moving forward, and what we would conceivably recommend to school committee if we had all the money in the world. So here's the hard part. How do we identify our concessions? You know, the easy way to say is, what can we live without? We can't live without any of this. We don't want to live without any of this. But again, we know we can't ask this community for $1.1 million. We know that there's a track record of not getting $1 million for the schools. Right, wrong, or indifferent. We know that. So how do we identify our budget concessions moving forward? What are the items? What made the Tier 1 priority list and had a somewhat of a equal or opposite that made the concessions list for terminology purposes? These are them, representing $431,000. First item, and these are listed in priorities as well, meeting risks. First item is a 7th through 12th humanities director, administrative position at the high school. So again, if you want to do the juxtaposition process in your head, we recommended a pre-K through 4 director. We're saying that we are willing to reduce, we think it's in the best interest of the budgetary process, to be fiscally prudent, to reduce this administrator. We believe that there's a way to try to pull us together and still have some of this responsibility completed by another administrator in our district, which would be the assistant principal of the high school. 2 full-time equivalent elementary teachers, 1 full-time equivalent social worker, building-based supplies, I'll talk about that in a second, building-based professional development, building-based software, technology consult support, a .2 FTE library ESP, early college experience program, an ECE program, an additional $70,000, and utilities because of the gas contract, and we're looking for the possibility of having the energy system at the middle school converted for with CVEC. We think that there'll be savings in there. We're not sure about the timeline on that, but we would rather project that risk or leave it. As I said, these are in order of risk to the budgetary fiscal priorities within our annual operating budget. The total value is $460,234. I'm not sure if I presented this slide in the past, but this is the system that we moved to. This is what I would call a cost-saving initiative that we established. When I first came, there was an imbalance as far as resources within our schools. The imbalance was that the supply accounts weren't based on something. So we changed that to base it on actual bodies within the school. How many students do we have? And what will we value a certain supply to for that particular student? Now, we've made some adjustments up and down in this, But if you look at the bottom right-hand side, our supplies accounts, which I presented at the Prop 2.5 override process, represents about $245,000 out of a $21 million budget. It's not a lot of money. So when we say we're going to cut supplies, we're already at the bone, we're cutting some more. But we've made some adjustments in these accounts because we've become very better, that's great words. We've become much better at our process for purchasing. As you saw in the cost saving initiatives, we do tech collaborative, we do comparative shopping, we try to buy in bulk, we do a number of things within our district. But again, we established a value so that we knew what we had and we could manage it, we could budget it. And it was fair and equitable across our schools. Now you see some variance in values because we know, and we talk about this sometimes, bigger kids, bigger supplies. So you'll see some variance as far as the high school level student. A textbook may be a little bit more expensive, but as you know, we're getting away from more textbooks and looking at things more electronically. So we've had some reductions in those accounts over the years. One of the things that I'm still continue to be proud of that we identified is if we require our students to do a curriculum-based field experience, or as you and I knew when we grew up, a field trip, and we thought it was important, we shouldn't be asking our parents to pay for it. We're asking them to double the pay. They already pay for the taxes and for the students to go to school. We don't need to ask them. We don't need to fee our parents to death. So if we thought it was important enough for our students to do a curriculum-based field experience or field trip, we should be budgeting for that. It's not perfect. We pay for 100% for every one of these? No. But we should be identifying a certain value in mitigating the cost to a family. If you recall, about 3 or 4 years ago, we did a study of what it costs out-of-pocket expenses for a parent going through the Bourne Public Schools from pre-kindergarten all the way through, and if they paid for everything, it was roughly $19,000 out of their pocket. If they paid for everything in Bourne Public Schools, they paid the pre-kindergarten tuition, kindergarten tuition, field trips, Washington trip, Nature's Classroom, you name it. I'm just naming the biggies, but if you pay for all that, it's roughly $19,000 out of your pocket just for fees that we charge in the Bourne Public Schools. We don't want to do that. We don't want to continue to do that. If I had my brothers, I'd get rid of every fee that we have. But right now, it's part of the fiscal management of our budget. Again, if we feel it's important enough to be a field-based curriculum experience, part of the learning process, part of the experience for our students, we should not be asking our parents to pay for those. We should be budgeting for those. You'll notice on that there is a variance there, or some people may identify a holy cow there for Bourne Elementary School compared to others. It's because it is the one outlier school for us. Other schools can go around campuses, can share campuses, can go to the Innovation Studio at the high school here. When there are field trips that are specific to Massachusetts or to the community of Bourne, walking down to the canal is easy on this side of the bridge versus that side of the bridge, so we have to hire buses. We have to provide buses for those trips. Now, I know that the number one question is, it would be for me, how are we going to reduce 2 elementary school classroom teachers? How can we possibly do that, Mr. LaMarche? I know I would ask that question. Well, again, data points, 365. It's not a new data point for us. We've been monitoring this for a couple of years now. What do our class sizes look like at the elementary level? This is our projection with the reduction of 2 elementary teachers for next school year. At Bournedale, this is moving 2 elementary teachers. Currently, at one of our elementary schools, Peebles, we have 5 teachers in first grade and 5 teachers in second grade. In third and fourth, we have 4 teachers. At Bournedale Elementary School, we have 4 teachers per grade. So if we had everyone have 4 teachers per grade, this would be our projection for class size. Now, is this going to be perfect? No. Are there some demographic bumps here and there? Absolutely. But I have to tell you, looking at these numbers, we're in pretty good shape. Do I want to lose those 2 elementary teachers? Absolutely not. Why would I? Why would I? But are there competing needs? Are there other needs in our district? Other priorities? I still think looking at this class size across all of our grades in our 2 elementary schools, we're in pretty good shape. So I want to go back and talk about a couple of the other concessions, the risks involved. We talked about the humanities director. We talked about the elementary teachers. The social worker, again, if you want to do a juxtaposition, quid pro quo, whatever words are in your head, we talked about adding an additional high school teacher for special education. This position is at the high school. This is a retirement. This is what we're prioritizing the program versus the social worker. I like the social worker. Would Christina Stewart like the social worker? Would the high school staff like the social worker? Yes. But we have to identify priorities. Building-based supplies. With some of our reductions, it's not a population reduction. It's a reduction in the value. I talked about how we're relying less on textbooks and more on technology. So there are reductions across all of our supply lines of roughly $26,000 that we've identified as being, again, a lesser priority to meet our significant priorities on our path of continuous improvement for the Bourne Public Schools. Building-based professional development, this was very specific to things that the administrators recommended or identified as needs within the building, and we provided professional development for those needs. The $20,000 actually wipes out all of those lines. This does not represent our contractual obligation to teachers to continue to support them in bettering their craft and their availability to funds for their personal needs, for their professional needs, for their, what I meant by personal needs is their personal growth, or professional growth. Building-based software, we've worked harder to have a less reliance on purchasing software and more public domain software. So we're able to reduce those lines. Again, it's $5,000 per building, 4 buildings. We're wiping those lines out to meet our priority needs. Technology consult support, we've moved to the cloud in many ways. We're almost completely there. It's been quite an endeavor, but we believe our reliance on vendors to support us with some of our, again, internal Microsoft Office products is changing because we're relying on the cloud, which is Google Drive, Google for Education. We believe we can do some more restructuring around our elementary library ESP, our early college experience program. The reason why it's at the bottom of this is because we don't want to decimate the program. This will be the first year that we have students who actually graduate from the early college experience program at 4 Cs, representing Bourne Public Schools, who will graduate with a high school diploma and a 2-year associate's degree. We will have 9 students. We believe all 9, but we know 8 of them are on track to receive a high school diploma and a 2-year associate's degree at the end of this school year. That's why it's at the bottom of it. We don't want to decimate this program. What a great opportunity for the Bourne community, for students in this community. And then utilities, I already talked about the risks involved in utilities. So those are the concessions we identified. I talked about the reprioritization, which I could go over again if you have questions about it. And so, in conclusion, or as a conclusion, the administrative team is recommending to the school committee for the school year 2016-17, or for the FY17 administrative recommended budget, a budget of $21,085,664 for the taxpayers of Bourne. In the handouts, and all school committee members, you have, this is not new, we've been working on this for years, you have our entire budget line by line. You have it starting with the fiscal year 2011, all the way through to this year. It's roughly 6 pages long. You have, if you're looking at it, you have column G, which is the administrative recommended budget that we're working on, to put us in a position to recommend to the town administrator what our FY17 budget would look like prior to, again, the Christmas holiday. H column, you have all of our offsets. Every offset we have is identified. What it's paying for, what it's offsetting, and what the value is. Then column I, you have our administrative recommended adjustments. So if it's something that's in a grayish color, that's an actual reduction in that line. If it's something that's a yellowish color, that's an addition to that line. So you'll see lots of details that weren't presented in the bigger picture this evening. For example, you'll see adjustments for $400 here, $200 there. Some of those lines, we've made adjustments. For example, if you look at line numbers 16 through 19, those are our print centers. We're at the end of a 3-year cycle around our lease agreement. We're looking for a new lease agreement. We believe it would be prudent for us to add somewhere around 2% increase in the change in that value. So that's why you see an increase of $600 for Bourne High School, $400 for People's Elementary School, $600 for Bourne Middle School, and $400 for Bourne Elementary School, for $2,000 for all of our print centers. If it comes in less, great. But again, we didn't want to leave any value not identified in this process, in this budget. You'll see the addition of staff. You'll see our FTEs from FY16 to FY17. You'll see on the back side, we're not increasing our FTEs, we're actually reducing our FTEs through this process. Everything in column F for FY16, if it's dark blue with white numbers, were lines that were impacted by the 2.5 override. You'll see a percentage in the notes. The percentage is a contractual obligation moving forward. You'll see that we budgeted a certain amount of contractual obligations for those that are still pending negotiations. Again, we realize that those could go up. We realize that those could go down. Whatever they are, we know that fiscally we'll have to balance that and manage that. You'll see certain X'd out boxes. Some of those are data points that we no longer have or we didn't have in the beginning. Once again, you'll see roughly represented on this document, rough number 285 lines. But once again, that's the detail behind our recommendation for $21,085,664 for fiscal year 17 moving forward. So I'm at the point now where it's open for questions or comments. So if we want to just take a break for school committee to come back up, or you want us to be there and ask questions and if I touch upon a slide?
Well, that's the thing. We did this last time. We kind of went back and then we all had to turn around when there were slides for questions. Plus, I'd like to walk around with the microphone. So anybody school committee have any questions first? Okay. Just a brief explanation of how this works, folks. The school committee looks at this budget through the hearing. We're actually hearing it for the most part for the first time. Certainly budget subs have an opportunity to work with the administration on a monthly basis, and that's one of the good parts about the proactive tenure on the school committee is that you are involved with budget planning on a monthly basis, not just as the budget season arrives. So we are hearing this for the first time. We'd like to take a look and have an opportunity to digest some of the numbers. Our deliberation in public is really done at the next meeting when we'll actually vote the budget. So that's generally in April. But certainly there's an opportunity to ask questions and maybe get some clarified questions. I have a couple here and there. But I wanted to open up to any of the people in the audience that might have any questions at this point, anything that they need clarified.
I have a question regarding the...
Let me get you the mic.
I have a question regarding the elementary learning coach. Is there a job description for that position, and how much of that position would include direct service to students?
Great question. Right now there is not a job description. There is a job description for a learning coach, but this is something that we've identified as a need. RTI, we started on district improvement plan that we need to continue to work on RTI. It's really not direct service to students other than co-teaching, supporting teachers. It's really building the capacity of the classroom teacher to address RTI Tier 1 and Tier 2. It obviously will involve connections with students, teaching students. It may be modeling a lesson, it may be modeling classes. It's exactly what our current learning coaches do, but it's very specific to RTI. One more question?
It's not a question, it's more of a statement. Excuse me, Peter Meyer, Board of Selectmen. In conversation with the town administrator earlier today, he has recommended the number that you recommended on the screen. It's the 20,800,000, the 20,800,000, 21,805. Thank you. Saying that that is a number that he could work with. I mean, yes, that's his number, but what I would like to see is the school committee's number, what they want. You know, they know what's best for these students. They may say that they're Bourne Public School students, but they are part of the town of Bourne. And we're all one big piece of the pie. You know, we're all one big budget number, $57 million. School's just a part of it, but they're everyone's students. And I think if you think we need more money to make some of this a reality, we will maybe find a way to make it happen. I mean, we were able to find money with turnbacks, money that would turn back that we didn't expect. We had one-time revenues. Now even as we're sitting here last October at town meeting, you had the chairman of the finance committee saying she wanted to take a second look at our budget numbers for FY16. Well, I think we need to look harder before we come down with a final number, because what we want a school system that's going to thrive. And a school system that thrives means a great economy. It means that people want to stay in the town. And you know, if we have a substandard school system, people are going to leave. People are going to leave, our property values go down, and it ends up being a detriment. We should have what's in the best interest of the Bourne Public School students, period. And if your number's a little bit higher than that, well, we'll have to reassess priorities overall, the big picture, to see what needs to be cut to make it happen. But I think we need, as elected school committee members and as the school leadership, what's in the best interest of the students. And I'll be waiting to hear from you all what you think is best when your final number. Thank you.
Thank you, Selectman Mark.
Mr. Chairman? Thank you, Peter. I appreciate the comments. And I just wanted, I didn't really present it this way, but because of your comments, I want to make sure that I address certain parts of our planning process, our 365 budget planning. We just experienced this past year a failed 2.5 override. It's not something we as a school district or I'm sure the school committee enjoyed in any way. Because we believe in what we're presenting and what we're building here for Bourne Public Schools. If you recall on one of the slides we talked about the long view. I have yet to hear differently that the long view looks at a possible 2.5 override in FY 2018. So I appreciate what you're saying for us to, if we need more, to ask for more, but I'm not going to ask or recommend more to only have to cut it or to face another failed 2.5 override. I'm going to be very prudent with my administrative team as far as what we're looking at for a long view. If the fiscal climate was different for FY 18, and if I hear something different, maybe we can get more into that open dialogue that you're talking about. Now, obviously, we will do whatever school committee asks us to do, but I am representing the administrative team, the district, from an operational perspective, and unless the long view changes for the community of Bourne, I don't want to recommend something that we have to just cut back again. So I just wanted to give you that feedback.
Hi there. Thank you for going through this as detailed as you did. I still struggle with a few things. ECEP costs $70,000 for nine students.
We budget around $100,000 for ECP. We do it in an offset through school choice. It's established as a program to accept students into our school system in the 9th grade year in preparation for the ECEP program. We're still in what I would call infant stages. We're only in our 2nd year of it. But we have, the only students that are enrolled in it right now, I think there's 1 student from out of our district. The rest are Bourne public schools, Bourne community students. It's an absolutely incredible program. Now, with that said, the reason why it's also there for a reduction is that we're also working with 4Cs to restructure the cost of that program. That was an initial cost to get it off the ground. We believe that that cost can come down. I'm not sure what your question is, but I just wanted to...
I'm just trying to go line by line on this. A few things that stuck out to me with the $70,000 cost for ECEP, the cost for
a pre-K through 4 curriculum director, when again, I raised this question before, why do we need grade-specific or segment-specific curriculum directors when it used to be all bundled in one office? It's $85,000 for a person to come in whose job that already belongs, to whom that job already belongs. And yet we want to have an $85,000 person doing that job. The other question I had was another administrator to collect data when all the data that we collect and all the electronic testing that we do, isn't that information available just from a report in the computer? I'm concerned that we're top-heavy in data collectors, people who aren't teaching in the classroom, who aren't directly helping the students in their day, but are shifting the focus of work to data collection. I'm not even seeing mentoring as much as I am seeing if a teacher's struggling with affecting or implementing something in a classroom, I can see teacher coaches there. But I'm struggling with some top-heavy positions, it seems. So I'd like some more clarification on why those people are being brought in. Especially with, I mentioned this before, 1,000 less students than 5 years ago. Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate your questions. A couple points. First of all, we don't have 1,000 less students than 5 years ago. The other point, too, is I think that there's a little bit of a minimization of that role at the elementary level for the administrative position around curriculum. There's an incredible amount of work that is around curriculum development, curriculum rollout, decision-making. And I know that you've asked the question about the administrative top-heavy. Please, we are very conscientious of that. That's why we're recommending eliminating an administrative position for an administrative position. We're not adding. The data clerk is not, I'm not sure what conceptually you're thinking of the data clerk. The data clerk is an office person that's very specific around our data. The more we automate, the information we have within our system is only as good as the data that's entered. Right now we have multiple data entry points, and some of that data is not productive and has not been working to. It's not specific to assessment. It's specific to data. We have a very thin central office. We have a very small central office. You're welcome to come by any time and see the 3, 4, 5 people that work there. It's not, again, if you look at our budget increases and stuff, we're not overspending. We're not. Going back to the $70,000, that's a reduction of ECEP. That's not an addition. We're recommending reducing $70,000 out of ECEP. That's a reduction. That's not an addition. Total cost of ECEP, we're a little under $100,000.
But again, for 9 students.
For 9 precious students in Bourne who are getting their associate's degree.
I don't discount what the opportunity provides for them. I'm concerned about the cost that could be kept here in the town rather than that free opportunity those students have. Don't get me wrong. You're right. For those 9 kids who've chosen that program, that's great. But it's 9 students at $100,000.
The cost of the $100,000 represents a per pupil expenditure, which is what it costs us to educate every student in Bourne. That's where the value comes from. It's the same value for every student in Bourne. We roughly pay $14,000, $15,000 per student to educate them in Bourne. Again, I appreciate it. It's an opportunity. When we talk about a 365 budget planning process, and I believe you were part of these meetings when I was first hired when we sat on stage, we heard overwhelmingly that we do very little to address our accelerated learners. ECEP was a program to address the needs of students who are prepared for that level of instruction at the college level. And we really want to support those students. Now, again, when we go through our budget process, we know that there's hard decisions to be made, Susan. We know there are. Again, we're reducing that program by $70,000. If we have students that are still interested in that, we're going to try to find a way to do it, but we're also working with 4Cs to restructure the cost of that so that it isn't a per pupil expenditure moving forward. But that was a model we worked on. If you recall, I went around the state looking at other programs across the state. We're the only district on the Cape that has access to that program at 4Cs. Only district. No other district has access to that program. That's a feather in the cap of this community. It's a huge feather in the cap of this community. And again, if the school committee feels that that program should be eliminated, again, I will certainly advocate for it. I will certainly throw everything at school committee as to why I would justify it. But again, we're recommending reducing it by $70,000, that budget line, to help pay for other priorities.
Are the accelerated students in the ECEP, or are there other students who are taking advantage of the ECEP?
The question is, are there accelerated students in that, or are there other students in that? I'm not sure what you're...
Well, the kids who are accelerated, who wanted more challenging work 3 years ago, those aren't the kids that are in the ECEP program.
Those are absolutely the kids that are in the ECEP program. It was an application process. There was a minimum requirement for them to enroll in it. There's been ongoing monitoring. I'm not as close to it, but I'm sure that Principal Setner could speak. If you want to stop in at Bourne High School office and talk, I know you're here sometimes. If you want to stop in and talk to her about ECEP, it's actually outlined in great detail on our website as well. The application process, the criteria for getting in. You know, I'm sure President John Cox would certainly entertain a conversation about it too, at 4Cs.
How many kids did you have apply for that program?
We originally had somewhere around 13, 14 kids apply for it, and we're at 9 at this point.
I have a question, and I don't expect that you would have an answer for it, but I'm going to throw it out there anyways. As you know, I have a home in Florida, and the Florida schools are county schools, so you have about 20, sometimes 20 schools in the county. In Florida, the schools have business partnerships that do bring in money. So my first part of that question is, do we foresee that anywhere in Massachusetts? And my second question would be, would it be advantageous to have a grant writer, somebody who's a full-time grant writer on staff?
Mr. Brown, thank you for the question. The easy answer is yes, but again, we only have so much money. And you know, we do have somebody who does write grants for us from the district level, but we also have other administrators that write grants too. And also we know teachers write grants too, so we'll support any of the grant writing. As far as the partnership, if you look at the district improvement plan, that was one of our initiatives. And we have been trying to establish partnerships, but it's a slow process. There's a lot involved in that. You know, one of the more recent partnerships is continuing to work with MMA, with 4Cs, but it's also working with local businesses. We had a recent meeting with representatives from Hydroid to come and work. You know, we would love to give them the naming rights to Bourne High School. Just joking, tongue in cheek.
I knew I had a story.
That's not a story, but no, we're trying to build partnerships. You know, there's not a good track record in our state around partnerships for that. There are communities that do start like an educational foundation, which is more of a vehicle for that partnership. Bourne does not have a Bourne Educational Foundation, which is really primarily started by parents or by a special interest group. It's not started by the school system. To build those business or those local relationships that would fund what I used to call in a prior district is they would fund the ideas. Because we could only go so far as a public school entity funding ideas, but foundations, educational foundations, really fund ideas that people have, and that's more kind of what you're talking about with the grant. But I don't have a specific answer, you know, in comparison to Florida, but it is something that's on a district improvement plan, is to continue to forge partnerships within our community.
Okay, does the school committee have any specific slide-based questions? Otherwise, we can migrate back to the table and maybe continue. Okay. Just a moment. Okay, first of all, I'd like to say thank you, Superintendent LaMarche, for your presentation. Every year it gets better. It's more informative. Certainly for me, this is my 5th presentation as a member of the board. And I just wanted to say also to the public, thank you for your comments. Many of the comments that you bring up are things that we have discussed and have concerns, but it's great to know that the public has some questions as well that are aligned with some of the topics that we bring up. Because a lot of times at the end of the day, it's just a matter of what makes the best sense for our students. How do we provide? And I think one of the best graphs, and you don't have to necessarily bring it back, but it's the 4-bar graph. It's what the impacts that bear in mind, that we have to bear in mind when we're developing a budget. And it's the general fund of the town. It's also the shared costs of which we participate in. And then consider the fact that the town of Bourne supports education in a variety of ways, including Upper Cape Tech School. It's a partnership that we work with to educate the students of Bourne, and it's something we have to consider. They're both governed and operate under very different rules. And so our budget is specifically borne by the community of the town. It really is a function of that, and it's something we work with closely. I will say, too, thank you to Selectman Meyer for his comments. We have been working very closely with town officials, the selectmen, the town administrator, routine meetings with the chair of the school, of the selectmen as well, to help educate and advocate for the schools, for the needs of the schools specifically. But at the end of the day, 1.6% of an increase from 2011 to 2017. Would you have taken this job, Steve, if I told you that's what you're going to work under? So we have some work to do, and I think that I'd love to hear any comments on the board, but as I spoke earlier, we're looking to deliberate a little bit more about this and certainly vote a number in April.
Let's see. Thanks, Chris. Okay, so I'm happy about a couple of things as we look at the priorities. So, for example, we have understood both from feedback from parents, from staff members about the importance of the guidance counselor at the middle school, about the importance of the health and wellness teacher. These are good. They've been back into the recommendation, supported already, frankly, in the rebuild, which is great. The dropout and credit recovery position and process and impact to students is huge. The math resource for grade 6, huge. Couple of the things are unavoidable. I need to note that we have drawn back. When I first started here, this is, I guess I get long in the tooth now, 6 years ago, we had, I think, 21 administrative positions overall. We have 16, if my count is correct, give or take now. 22 to 16, whatever it is. The point is that the reporting requirements, I'd love to say that they are not as voluminous as they were even 6 years ago, but I gotta be blunt. They're, oh, you're saying something, okay, great. This is great. But they're large, they're a lot larger. And the data mining is not going away. Let's be crystal clear on that, because every facet of government, working on the federal side certainly, is predicated on data collection, data analysis, and data mining. It's just not going to go away. It's a requirement. The laws and appropriations that give us funds to work with also come with monster strings attached, and we have that obligation. We have, I think, to our detriment, as we look at, for instance, like an $8,000 stipend to increase our reporting capacity, These things they have to happen. There's no two ways about it. I'm struck by a couple of other things. The enrollment figures as we look ahead to the school year 17, even with the changes in staffing to basically be at 4 per grade per school. Although obviously the number that sticks out most commonly is the grade 2 at the Bourne Elementary School, but overall I'm struck by just the enrollment numbers in general. These are very reflective of the 25% drop over the last 14 years across Cape Cod. We, in school-aged children, Bourne has actually, I think it's due to our proximity to Boston and maybe just more families having accessibility to commute to their place of work, for example. We haven't seen the same dramatic drop, but it's still been a reduction. And it's interesting at the youngest grade levels, when we look at those kinds of numbers, they're just not huge. They're not 180, they're not 190, and so on. So that's interesting, and yet we still have very good class size numbers. I mean, those are excellent. Actually, they're almost ideal coming from my teaching years. Let's see. I think that's it for my initial thoughts from a budget subcommittee chair perspective at this point. The only thing I would say is I want to point out to folks that there are 3 members of our budget subcommittee that are here. They are myself, they are Judy Froman to the left of me, and they are Mitch McLean to the right of me. So we're 3 members of the budget sub. Obviously, any of the school committee members would welcome feedback, information, and input. It's really helpful to us over the next month in particular, but the budget subcommittee members have a little bit more knowledge about a lot of this stuff, and certainly are really happy to talk more at length about it, both past fiscal years and the one coming up. So it's an invitation. Thanks very much.
I just want to clear one thing up too, that while it shows direction, the data clerk we're referring to is the tier 2 request. Am I correct? Yeah, so that really just shows direction. It's not one of our immediate tier 1 priorities. And so just to be clear.
Yeah, and maybe I didn't use the terminology right. I referred to just the stipend to increase our capacity, the $8,000 stipend, but I appreciate it.
Back on the outline of what the 1.6% increase over since 2010. One of the questions that comes up from time to time that I ask about that is about the enrollment numbers as that compares. And so could you address the enrollment numbers in 2010 versus as compared to what we have at this point?
I don't have, I like to be precise, so I don't have that exact number in front of me, but we're roughly around 400 to 500 students less than 2010 era. But again, I think from my perspective, our budget reflects our understanding of that. We have not, you know, the function of the budget is we don't sit here and wait for the town to tell us what to do. We also work ourselves. We're very independent as a school district and administrative team. You know, if we really thought that we were being in a compromised position, we'd be banging walls and banging heads and whatever. But we know that the fiscal realities of the community has also identified that our enrollment has come down. So we've tried to be, you know, again, prudent in our budget planning. Now, when you look at the spreadsheet that has all the other communities, every one of those have faced serious enrollment drops. I mean, Sandwich in itself has been 900 to 1,000 students less, if my data serves me right. Dennis Shawmut, the regional school district, is like 800 students less than what they've had. There's no reflection of a reduction in their annual increases or their percentage increases over the same time. So again, that's the proud part. I think that we've taken that as a representation in our budget planning process, that we know our enrollment has dropped and things can't stay the same. As I said earlier, Bourne High School, with our enrollment dropping at Bourne High School, especially with that year that we had an Upper Cape assessment that was larger than life from a fiscal perspective, we reduced here at Bourne High School. We reduced staff. You know, our goal isn't to just, if we got it, keep it. That's not our goal every year. Our goal is to prioritize what is important to us and to our students. And to our students, it comes down to offering programs, offering the right support, offering the right opportunity, giving them every opportunity that we can possibly muster within our administrative capacity to do. And in that are tough decisions, and sometimes reductions are part of that.
I just want to make, if I'd like to make, oh, we have one. Sorry.
Okay. I'd like to ask a question just as like the newcomer to the committee, so I probably know the least amount out of anybody. But have you factored into any upcoming years that the class sizes would stay the same or relatively the same?
Again, we do our best. We've been watching patterns over the years. You know, we put ourselves in a position where we have a pretty good understanding as to where we are as far as our enrollment for pre-kindergarten, kindergarten, and what's coming up within the two schools. I also want to be clear, if there's a demographic bubble that comes up, we're going to do everything we can to meet that. When we say that this is our recommendation based off of projections, if one of these projections fails miserably, then we're going to have to identify concessions to meet that. We're not going to go into next fiscal year and say, you know what, darn it, we said this is what it's going to be. I'm not changing. We're going to say, if all of a sudden class size approaches, I think 25 is really our point to really start having discussions. When we get up to 26, 27, which used to be a reality here, when we get up around that number, we need to start looking for ways to mitigate that and to address that. And that, obviously, to us budgetarily, from a fiscal governance perspective, means that we have to identify ways to afford that. We're not going to put our students and our teachers in a compromising position if class size starts ballooning to a certain point if we didn't project well.
So it sounds like you're saying in the next few years you're not expecting a giant growth in population, just so that we wouldn't go back in a year and say, why did we let those two teachers go in 2 years?
Right. Again, I don't have a crystal ball, so I don't. But looking at this has been helpful with the Mass School Building Authority, because through their process, they also gave us a demographic report and what it looks like and projections look like for the future, and they're measuring it off as a lower growth for Bourne community, and that's really based off of the areas for build, the building permits that are out there, the places for building. So unless all of a sudden, you know, school-age parents and members buy all of the houses that are for sale in town, which again could happen. If it does, we'll address that. But unless that happens, we have enough data to say that this is really where we're at.
Okay, I have one more, and it was more of a clarification, kind of going off what Mrs. Barachini was asking about in the ECEP. It sounded like you were saying it's about 90,000 total for 9 students, and that it's generally 14,000 per pupil anyway. So just to clarify, is that in addition to the 14, or is that's generally 9,000 per pupil for the ECEP then, that are 10,000 for the ECP? So is that in addition to the 14 that we're spending?
Okay, I'm going to try to explain it the best I can.
Okay.
At the end of the day, when we look at our budget and what it costs us to educate a student in the community of Bourne, it's $14,000 per student. When we educate a student at 4 Cs, the MOU that we agreed to, the school committee as well as with 4 Cs, we agreed that we would pay 90% of our per pupil expenditure for a student to attend that. So does that mean that we're paying $30,000 for that student? No, it's not apples to apples like that. At the end of the day, it's in our Schedule 19, it's in our filing with the state, and our value per student is the same. It doesn't increase. Again, it's all around the fiscal process of it, but our formula for the MOU, the Memorandum of Agreement or Understanding with 4 Cs, is based off of our per pupil expenditure to help pay for the tuition to attend that school, for them to get that program off the ground as well. I hope that helped.
No, it did, and I think it's a definite point of clarification that you're not spending, double the amount of money for those particular kids to meet their, challenging goals of a, more rigorous academic education while getting that. So I think that's kind of an important clarification to make for that program. So thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you, Superintendent LaMarche. I think we'll be back in touch with you. Okay, to return to the public participation section, item number 7, we're just going to revisit that with some discussion over the idea of grade divisions within the Bourne School District, and talking about the option that would include a 5th grade at the elementary school at the Bournedale location, excuse me, at the Peebles location, forgive me. And I just want to reiterate that that's an important aspect to this, because in some of the research we've been providing, certainly some of the research I've been doing on the transition, that the transition itself presents a big challenge for students, just the actual transition themselves. And this district has recognized that. I remember early on, we actually had transition committees that assisted students going from 4th to 5th grade and 8th to 9th grade between the different schools. And that was a key component in ensuring success for our students. So when we're now adding an additional transition potentially from going from for a Bournedale student that would go from a 4th grade, how do you decide that a Bournedale student has 2 transitions and a Peebles student has 1? If you were a parent, where would you want your student to go? And how does the district deal with the influx of people that all of a sudden really want their students at a new school with 1 transition? I mean, these are some of the aspects that we have to consider in developing this. The other thing that I would ask as part of the deliberation is, I've considered a lot of this research and discussion, what's best for our students. And I believe that our district, while maybe we've considered the opportunity, the fact of the matter is that we've been working with the K through 4 now. And I don't believe it's been a tremendous detriment to learning. And for us to place an extraordinary premium by exercising an option that would be far more expensive than a pre-K through 4, is this committee prepared to put a price tag on that premium and to what value that is? So I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just giving you some points of deliberation.
I think the counterpoint to that, or something else that needs to be thought about as well, transition, when we talk about transition and the importance of, having our students transition the least amount of times during their K through 12 years, is there a problem currently with our 5th graders being at the middle school? I think the answer to that question is going to eliminate some of these options in moving forward. And Mrs. Ryan could probably speak to that more. Do we find that our 5th grade students aren't having the success that they are having being in a building with 6th, 7th, and 8th graders? Should they be moved? If the answer to that question is yes, then maybe we should be moving forward and looking more at changing. But if our students at the 5th grade level, and all 3 of mine have been through the middle school with great success, 5 through 8, then why are we even contemplating the idea of disrupting that age group?
Mr. Chairman, Ms. Rooney,
And wait a minute, and please don't say it's a money issue. Because first and foremost, we're here for the students.
To answer your question, part of the school building committee work has been what this community has been through over the past. And we know through our experiences, either as an employee or as you as parents, that students, in this community we've had a number of schools. We've had a number of elementary schools. We've had a number of grade spans. We've had a number of transitions. So part of the deliberation was there at one point in time belief that 5th grade should be part of the elementary school level? And if you look at some of our frameworks around the state, there's a lot of work that's around grade spans up to 5th grade, and then a transition from 6th through 8, something of that nature. So part of the conversation has circled around, is 5th grade really, should it be considered programmatically and educationally? Not taking into consideration whether our kids are having a poor experience or a good experience at Bourne Middle School, but from an educational perspective, should they be considered part of an elementary school? Was that part of some plan at some point in time as well? Some of the deliberation has been around when Bourne Middle School was first conceptualized. Was it really a 6th through 8 building, or was it a 5th through 8 building? And see, that's why when I talk about the 3 things that are really going to come into play, 5th grade is one of them, and we need more clarification from our school building committee. And we're lucky enough to have members who were part of the Bourne Middle School Building Committee on that committee to help share with us, the thought again, the past experience. Was fifth grade really considered to be a permanent fixture in the middle school, or were we looking at it as being part of an elementary school? And again, from a curriculum perspective, a pre-K or K through 5 school has been looked at as an optimal grade span for schools with some research. But it's something we have to look closer at and have, you're right, have more deliberation on. And Ms. Ryan has already given us some feedback on fifth grade, and they've had a wonderful experience at Bourne Middle School. So we have to take that into consideration.
Mr. Chair, real quick, I just need to make sure that I understand exactly what you and Mitch need as members of the school building committee. What do you need something from us tonight to move forward with what decisions you have to make together as a group with your building committee? There's an essential question I want to make sure that we answer like now, if we can answer now.
Mr. Chairman, and great question, Mr. Stoke. It was really around, the school building committee wanted to learn from this committee, was there not official, but was there more of a position that this committee is leaning towards or taking to help or assist with the decision making? We had a great conversation at the last school building committee meeting that this is not a political process, this is an actual best interest for students process. And the school building committee, because it has a cross-representation which includes school committee members, we just wanted to get a sense of this body as the board of directors for the school system. Do you see fifth grade as being a potential positive or a negative? And just have some healthy deliberation around it. It doesn't mean a final decision is being made today. The school building committee has some work to do over the next couple of meetings, but really to have a healthy dialogue around it and kind of get a sense or a measure where this committee sat around the educational component of fifth grade. Did that answer your question?
It did. Well, and it actually helped me to solidify what my thought is on this initially, and that's simply this. Are people in change when it's not methodical, well thought out, and the value of it hasn't been calculated ahead of time? You know exactly what you're going to get, and you've estimated the cost of whether it's financial or loss of productivity or loss of curriculum or loss of cohesion. Minimal incremental change from my viewpoint, and based on the character of our community, I think is always best. I think that for us as a community, incremental, methodical change is what we want to do, well thought out and measured, because we will not ever be a community, and I don't want to be in a community like this. It just throws money in a problem, just tests things out sort of wildly, right? We need to be methodical. And I think that with that said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it applies a little bit here. And if we have a methodology that seems to make sense, where we have a 5 through 8 building and we have some K through 4 buildings, and it minimizes the numbers of factors we have to consider overall. If we use the baseline of what we would consider success, as long as we can benchmark it reasonably with other kinds of things, I don't know why we would change, would be my sort of theoretical question. I mean, it's about right-sizing our objectives here when we build a new building, or when we add on, or when we improve, to get the most out of it for the students. And I don't know that that's the testing bed that I want to use to say, let's start shifting a lot of grades around. For me, as one has said, and I'm just not comfortable with that right now. So, for what it's worth, that's initially, and I think it's, I can be dissuaded, any of us I'm sure can be, from that opinion, but from my viewpoint, we want to minimize the number of change and distractions for their own sake. So I don't know if that helps you, Mitch, and when you guys kind of go forward with that.
In the preparation for considering the different options, are there any examples of towns that have a single grade school system, like not a system, but single grade school, and has there been any type of dialogue with those other towns to see what they think about the multiple transitions? Because I can also see, that there could be people who say, transition, you got to buck it up, you got to learn, you have to learn to transition and adapt in life. I happen to be one of those people who thinks that way, but I also know that it is disruptive in terms of, a lot of the benchmarks for flowing along in the educational realm. So the thing that I think, the commentary about, well, buck it up and try to teach people to transition, is that really the job that the schools are in, or is the job really educating the academic area at the foremost? And I would think that it would be the academic area. So back to my question, what other towns are there?
Ms. Furman, as you know, every community is, in our state, is very local and very, mission-oriented, or I'm not sure if I'm saying the right word, but it's all relative. So you can go to any community and they're going to tell you that either it's good or it's bad. It's all anecdotal. It's not really research-based. We have looked at lots of pieces of research. There's some research that's out there. There hasn't been a ton of research recently on grade spans or transitions, but there's enough research out there, one or two empirical studies on it and stuff like that that we're looking at and trying to help with the decision. I think one of the important pieces for me, which I don't have a good measure on because I haven't had children go through this system all the way through yet, but we're really getting to a point now for the first time in Bourne where we haven't had students that have shuffled from one building to the next. And is that going to pay dividends for us at this point in time? Our graduating students, or our students that are in Bourne High School now, have only had one elementary school and one middle school. Where in the past, I think as recent as last year, the year before, they've gone out to Otis, they've gone to this school, they've gone to Hoxie, they've come here. So we're really getting to that point where we're really trying to see, is it more effective to have minimal transitions and stuff like that. I don't have a good measuring stick for that, other than actually because of your question about other communities and what they look like. This community really should weigh in about how that feels compared to how it was in the past. Because many people are now experiencing that minimal transitions than they experienced in the past. I think it's invaluable with the decision making.
Just to bring one data point, during our mass conference, I did meet up with a school committee member from Southborough, and I called this person about 5 to 10 days ago, I think, and discussed this, because they had a very similar opportunity about 7 years ago when they were building a school. And they were looking at 2 communities, elementary schools, versus one with a similar grade setup. And their concern edged more to the single school, which is what they ended up going to, mostly because of continuity, maintaining K through 4, and a continuity in training in teaching for the students between the different schools. So they came at it from a slightly different approach, continuity of education, more the academia, like you referred to, as compared to possibly the transition schedules. I didn't really get into discussing transitions with them, but because their decision had already made, and as Steve mentioned, I believe they were just now starting to realize the efforts, potentially improve scores, things like that.
So my biggest thing, first of all, I will say that I went to boarding schools and went to 5 different schools growing up. Not saying anything either way, but just saying we've come a long way from many, many transitions to just a few. But my biggest thing is thinking of the vision as we're playing this, and I know that there's been so much written and thought of, but I don't want to build a building and have it completely full when we get in there. So are we going to have room to have everyone have the full day kindergarten, get the preschool in there? That's so if it factors one way or another with the 5th grade, that would be my only consideration when we're talking about shifting a grade, just making sure we have room for our future goals that we have in mind.
Mr. Paul, just a couple points of clarification. One is kindergarten is part of every plan. Full day kindergarten is part of every plan, yes. We're going to take advantage of that process because it is reimbursable. We're a great district because we already have an established pre-kindergarten program, which is not reimbursable by MSBA. So that will stay in existence, which is great. It's not something that we're going to lose through any of these projects as well. But full day kindergarten is part of every plan that we put forward. And to answer your question about will we be at capacity? Again, if every parent of school-aged children buys every house for sale in Bourne, we'll be at capacity.
I think I mentioned this last week at the joint meeting that I'm not that familiar with the previous building meetings, so it's probably more advanced than this has been there before. But I do know that as having kids in Warndale and at the middle school, I only started getting the notifications for the talk about the new building development and then hearing about the different plans this year. And this is going to impact the community overall, everybody. And I think that as new to the board, I still have concerns that we're even discussing making a decision of this magnitude for something that we haven't taken time to have a qualitative or quantitative analysis. I mean, I think pretty much seconding what Matt was saying is that this is a huge decision that has lots of ramifications to all parts of the community, including the middle school does house 5 through 8. And I don't think that they're bursting at the seams. So if you get rid of a grade, what's going to happen to that school? And also, you know, we're not talking about whether we theoretically want to move 5th grade out of the elementary school so that there'd be 2 5th grades in each. As the classic kind of example that I grew up with, it was, you know, K through 5. That's not on the table. You're not going to get a 5th at Bourne and a 5th at the new Peebles. So you're really kind of changing the whole dynamic and doing something different that nobody in this town is used to. We haven't seen before. We don't have a lot of examples in the surrounding towns that we're basing any opinion on. So I'm a data-driven person, so for me, this would be a very quick decision that needed to be made, I believe, by this spring in terms of going forward with the building. So I have kind of a, you know, it seems like it just came up this fall. So it's kind of, you know, if we did have the money to do it, it doesn't necessarily mean that we should do it, which I think is kind of along with what Matt was saying. About if it's not broken, don't fix it thing.
Well, actually, yeah, the setup was a great project.
Yeah, yep. No, I appreciate that. Thank you, Erica. No, for me, I just was talking about the one of the 3 questions that were sort of essential to the building committee, and it was just the idea of where 5th should be placed. It wasn't the idea of capacity or renovation. I mean, People's is not the building we want to. Yeah. No. Just for me, it's about the strategy. Yeah. Okay. Good. We're together. Yeah.
That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm talking about 5th grade.
You're talking about the relocation. Yeah.
Coming out.
So 5th grade coming out of the middle school is a whole other can of worms about the middle school. I mean, you know, I haven't heard anybody mention that. What's going to happen to the middle school that houses them? That's a lot of room right there. I'm in there a couple, you know, once, twice a week, and I mean, I might be wrong, Ms. Ryan can tell me that. It's not empty, but it's not bursting at the seams. So now you're talking about taking an entire grade of kids and housing them in a school all by themselves. I think that's a different can of worms to the community if you were taking 5th grade and putting them each in the middle school, each in the elementary school. That's not what we're talking about. I think that's, you know, a confusing issue. And I also think that the timetable, this just came up this fall, and now we're being asked to make this, you know, very big decision that has broad ramifications. So I think that's kind of more, it's just a very fast timetable to make something like that. And when I was hearing Matt saying, it's just, I mean, it's not, and Marianne was saying it too, you know, it's not just about, you know, that it's not broken, don't fix it, but I mean, if there was some sort of empirical evidence that said that they'd be more rigorously challenged, that this would be better for their social development, and we're missing the boat on something, that's different, but I don't know that we've had any time to collect any data or do any research on that. So it seems like that's moving very fast for such a big decision like that.
Mr. Fitzpatrick, if I could address, you're absolutely right, it's moving fast. Once Mass School Building Authority identifies you in need of some type of a project, their timeline is very strict because they're giving you possibly $12, $13, $14, $15 million. So they have a very prescribed timeline you have to follow. We only entered into an agreement with a project, owner's project manager last June. We attended a meeting last June where it was solidified with MSBA to start. And so we just started with, you know, things over the summertime, just collecting, and then we hired a group for a feasibility, an architect for a feasibility study to be conducted. We did that over the summer, and then all of a sudden, trust me, I feel like I'm on a treadmill when it comes to the Mass School Building Authority and their requirements. And you're right, it's an April 7th decision for this school building committee to put forward a preferred schematic design for a single building project to the Mass School Building Authority. Now, doing that doesn't mean that it's done. I mean, that's what that those are the bill of goods that it's what we're endorsing and saying that we believe in and going forward with that, but it's still going to be the will of this committee, the will of the community, and et cetera, moving forward. We all agree that Peebles is in need of something. It can't continue the way it is. What we land on and decide will be based off, this town approved the previous fall, 2014. Yeah, 2014. This community approved a feasibility study of $700,000 regarding all of this. So a lot of work is being done around the facility, the needs of the facility and all that. What it's really coming down to now is what is, a huge portion of this, which I'm hired for to advocate for, with your blessing, is what's educationally best for our kids. And that's what it's starting to come down to. So that's why I listed 5th grade as the number one thing, the number one issue that we have to address going into this. But it is fast. I like data as well. And so that's why I've been trying to do some reading of studies and empirical studies and grade spans and transitions and all of that. And we're going to get closer to deliberating that at our March 10th meeting with the school building committee. But it is fast. There's no question about it. I don't know, I can't control it. It's a Mass School Building Authority control. I know that's not going to make you feel good.
Okay, I think we'd like to continue on with the agenda tonight. Next, we have the school business side of our agenda, and we have a series of minutes to approve. We have already approved the January 6th minutes, which needs to be amended in the February 3rd minutes. And I think we had tabled the January 3rd minutes just for some corrections, and I believe most of those have been made. There's only one correction that needs to be, I found recently, and I can send that along. And then we also have, in addition to the January 30th, the February 27th was a short meeting we had with the selectmen to appoint Mr. Fitzpatrick for the position of interim school committee member. So if no one has any issues, can we approve this by consensus? Okay, so approved. Thank you. All right, next up on the list we have the policies. And I'd like to turn that over to Mr. Stook. I believe you're the chair of the policy sub. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Okay, school committee colleagues, I just want to briefly talk to you about policies and just remind you of the approach that we've taken with regard to policies. To be clear, we've got policies that haven't been validated or reviewed, looked at as far back as the year 2000. It's too long and too far for us to go like that. Just too much has changed in the last 16 years, and there's a lot of policies that are not just outdated, but really just not applicable anymore in our contemporary world of education. They just have to go. We call that retiring, and retiring policies, as recommended by the policy subcommittee, can happen for several different kinds of reasons. They include, for example, no legal or regulatory requirement from Mass General Law or otherwise. No recommendation from the Massachusetts Association of School Committees, MASC, that we even have that policy. Not that that should drive everything, but it's certainly one indicator, especially if we're measuring value. We always want to know what does the policy give us. Policies that are fallow and not really well reviewed or adding any value to student achievement, we really have to wonder why they're there. And if there is no legal requirement, we have to question whether or not we should still have that policy. Particularly if we have ones that overlap one another, that kind of abut one another, sometimes conflict with one another, and so on. So as a reminder, we're going through chapter by chapter. Chapter A is first, and then B and C and on, over the next, 18 months still remaining, I'm sure of that. MASC is supporting us in this effort, just with a lot of drafting and real grunt work in terms of review. And now we're to the point where we're moving forward and we have some recommendations for you regarding these policies. So with that, I would call your attention to the packet that you have. Conveniently enough, it's in blue and says to be retired. And I just want to call your attention to the first one, policy AB. So if you flip to it, I'll name the policy real quick. It's the people in their school district. And I know, that is literally the title, of course. And it sounds a little like we should maybe wonder about its effectiveness. And I think at one time this was sort of a recommendation for a lot of school districts to have information about, but Again, this falls into the category, at least for the policy sub, as a recommendation to you all, that we retire this. And the reason we retire it is simply because we have philosophies and objectives and other things that we review every year. And this is just, again, for us, it's not adding a lot of value, it's taking up space. And frankly, making people less inclined even to look at the policies that we want them to look at, right? And that's really one of our objectives here. So with regard to that, a recommendation that the policy sub has made to you is to retire policy AB, the people in their school district. Mr. Chair, if that's the way you want to do it. Yeah, I would say they're not all exactly the same rationale. There's a couple that are covered by other policies and so on. So I know it's a bit more tedious, Mr. Chair, but I would like to.
Retire AB.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. The next policy that I'd like to call your attention to is policy ACA, non-discrimination on the basis of sex. This is an important policy. It has a lot of value and a lot of criticality, but it's also one that is covered by other areas, namely policy AC, which is now is a consolidated policy, one of the most critical ones we have. We actually already updated AC like within the last year and a half. Thank you, Susan, again, for all that the question and answer we've had in the last couple of weeks. But AC is an excellent policy. In fact, it's constant, it's alive. We update it. We're going to make a recommendation to update it tonight, in fact. But it's covered there. So this is just based on duplication. And on behalf of Policy Sub, I move that we retire policy ACA.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. With that, policy ACBA, bullying, ACBA. Again, this is about duplication. ACBA bullying is been covered now at length, by the way. You'll recall in the last 2 years, we've covered bullying through policy AF. It's very comprehensive. We were actually legally bound to contain, gosh, so much more information and requirements that is here, and now this policy is frankly is just moot at this point. So AF has really replaced this, and I move that we retire policy ACBA.
Second. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, policy ACE. Policy ACE, another non-discrimination policy, very important, this time on the basis of handicap. Again, to emphasize, this is now very well covered, much more specifically covered in policy AC, and I recommend that we retire policy ACE. And I so move that.
All those in favor? Discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? And carries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Next, policy AD, Alpha Delta. AD, educational philosophy. Now, this is interesting because when we talk about educational philosophy, for us, it speaks to something that we talk about actually at every school committee meeting, at least as an introductory at the beginning. And it speaks to our vision, our mission, and our objectives for any given school year. It's a topic of obsession, frankly, amongst the school committee because it's one of our primary jobs. The educational philosophy, if you will, the subcommittee has just determined in recommending to you that it is not adding value to what we do. It's a policy that takes up space in a way that is not productive for advancing education in the community and in the schools, and we recommend that we retire AD in lieu of the existence, frankly, of vision, mission, and objectives on an annual and frankly even a semi-annual basis based on how much we review.
Any discussion?
So if is there any type of policy that says, let's pretend none of these people are here, and we still think that that's all really important to have a mission, vision, and all of that? Is that addressed anywhere in the policy?
The mission and some other things are actually coming up as ones that we will be recommending retirement of, interestingly enough. But I do appreciate the process. Yeah, I do appreciate the process question. And I guess, Mitch and Marie, to the extent that we want to maybe give ourselves direction on vision, mission, and objectives, come to think of it, we don't have codified anywhere. Hey, school committee, we are binding ourselves to do this process each year.
Through the chair to the committee, there isn't one entity that wouldn't bind you to that. Let's look at the Center for District and School Accountability from DESI. Look at the educator evaluation system. There isn't one practice that we have that doesn't bind this organization into creating a vision, mission, and objectives or goals moving forward. Every system that we have in place is tied into all of that.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, we're committed to what we do. I don't see us leaving vision, mission, and objectives behind. They speak much more true to our community about educational philosophy than this document does. Like much more organically throughout the year. I mean, this is really kind of standalone. It evolves as it should. So I appreciate the comment. I'm glad for it. It's a good question. I still, for the purposes of discussion, Mr. Chair, I still recommend that we retire AD. And if it's determined that in the future we would like to give ourselves some more structure in that regard, we can definitely task policy stuff with. Let's codify this kind of process and bind ourselves with this kind of work in the future.
Yeah, I kind of wondered, the citizens of Bourne would want to see that somewhere like that. You know, it's written that that there will be a yearly review of emissions. It's still, so just saying that you make it part of it, that, you know, that's putting, and I'm not saying it's not putting it in the right place, but that's putting your trust in the people there, that they'll constantly be evolving and reevaluating and reassessing the goals and the missions of the district. But it's not set in policy somewhere, and I wonder if it's just, you know, something that's not a bad policy to have, that it would be addressed on at least a yearly basis, that will, and of course, you know, everybody else will think more, but where these are rotating positions by elections, that it's something that the group as a whole would have to try to look at least on a yearly basis.
Through the chair, keep in mind I believe this one is one of many that MASC doesn't even have as a model policy. This was specific to Bourne. I could be wrong on that, but again, we're working with MASC on determining what are best policies for the Bourne Public Schools moving forward for the operation of the district. I certainly would recommend to the committee to table the vision, mission, whatever, and take a look at it. Maybe you can quantify it into one policy or something like that. But I just, you know, this was, the whole goal here is to try to clean up policies that were created, just like what you were saying, you know, that we think is best for the Bourne community, but they're really not operational to how the district runs. So that's the deliberation and the process we're going through with all of our policies.
I think one of the things that we had discussed that month was taking procedural types of things out of our policy. And our policy should only reference what Mass General Law states and what's in our contracts and things like that. That should be part of our policy manual.
I would have to echo that. That was actually my comment that I was going to make, is not to bind ourselves specifically to idiosyncrasies of the town. I mean, they're important. We read vision, mission, and vision at the start of every single meeting. I think it's part of our culture, the way we do this. But you know, I would agree with Steve that this might be something we want to table, precisely why we want to break these things out and vote on them separately, and maybe everybody can get back to this. Would you guys agree to do something like that?
I got a motion. I'm kind of committed to it.
Yeah. Okay. Well,
but I would say this. I mean, Mr. Chair.
So we had a second.
But I do not want to withdraw the motion. So if the motion fails, I'm good with that, or whatever the will of the committee is, that's fine. I can say that the policy sub either way can take this back to homework anyway. We want to do that, and we can kind of take up the process about sort of codifying for ourselves an expectation we have as community members, like elected officials has, for how we run the district. And we will always have a vision, we'll always have a mission, we'll always have objectives. So for what it's worth, and either way, I think it's a homework assignment.
So you want to keep your motion? So we'll end the discussion then there and just go ahead and take a vote. All those in favor of retiring of the motion that made retiring ED, please vote in favor.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it carries. Thank you. Any abstentions here? Thank you.
That's good. And we'll, Anne-Marie, I'd like to know we will take that into our next one as well. Thank you for that. ADA, school next recommendation for retirement in the school district goals and objectives. I actually feel much more strongly about this one than I did about the other ones because I do not believe that in a policy, goals and objectives have a place. They're not as fluid there. They're not. They're a bit more fixed. We have to vote on it every time. Our own policies, interestingly enough, about developing policies, say that when we change them, we have to. It takes actually a couple of meeting cycles to do. We distribute some changes, then we review them, and then a month later we vote. And so that's just not, I think, the organic way that we want to do our objectives for our district and our mission as well. So, so with that, I recommend, also sub-recommend strongly that we retire ADA, sort of even more than philosophy, because at least there's a process in there. So, I didn't.
Okay, we have a second discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Thank you.
Thank you. The last one is Alpha Echo AE, commitment to accomplishment. This one's difficult to justify, frankly, as a policy. It actually dates back to 1999, so I was wrong. 2000 is the oldest. This is from 1999. And again, as you scan through it, I think it'll be self-evident. In fact, it was one of the ones that caused us to say, we really need to put these in baskets of retirement and validation and then just adjusting and tweaking. And this one is not in the validated adjusting tweak. We really, we're committed to accomplishing any number of things that are in there, and they're evidenced through lots of other activities that we really feel like this is not adding value for us right now. So.
And is that a motion?
I'd like to move that we retire AE.
For a second, any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. And I do believe we have one more, Matt.
ADDA. My apologies. Did I?
It's the backside of
it.
this.
I'm sorry. I flipped it into something. Yes. Thank you. Oh, actually, with everybody's indulgence, we're going to hold off on this until, because it'll be in more context when we talk about one of the distributions of loans.
So we're not going to retire this year?
Oh, no, we will. But I hadn't planned on bringing that up until.
Right, I just, instead of the agenda, I moved it up to the retirement category versus tied to the ADDA.
Okay. Well,
so the chair should request some direction.
Yeah, I would follow the chair of the policy sub. And when we distribute the ADDA and explain it, then you can make a motion to retire ADDA-R, which interestingly enough also had file names ADDA-E1 and ADDA-E2 for retirement too.
Some more about those after. The next policy actually is not in front of me. This is a validation, and I want to be clear that the whole purpose of validating our existing policies as applicable is to simply say the policy sub has reviewed it, it's still valid, it still adds value to what we're trying to do in the district, and we're just acknowledging we're not making any changes at this point. It is online, it is the policy that deals with legal status, it's consistent with the MASC recommended policy. We do not recommend any changes at this time. So with that, we would like to stamp it as having been reviewed and validated as of March. So we recommend validating policy AA, legal status. and it will be stamped as basically validated once we re-approve it. Again, validate is the best word. Reviewed was the other one, and we just thought reviewed was too soft and not active enough to indicate what we were doing.
Okay, so you were looking to make a motion to validate.
To validate policy maintenance, so that we can acknowledge with a date stamp essentially on the policy that it's been reviewed as of 2016.
I just put it on the screen if you wanted to read it. It's a very short one. If you wanted to read it before you
Thank you.
validate it.
School district legal status. It talks about our requirement that we basically have, well, I mean, we have legal obligations. We need to make sure we meet them. It's really short. It's really straightforward. Again, we have no recommended changes, and we do think it's important for this year, so that's why we're valid.
Okay, so we have a motion. Any, we have a second. All those in favor? Excuse me, any discussion? I missed a step. We had a second, just looking for discussion. Okay, all those in favor? Aye. It's because we're not facing each other.
No,
So we can tell what's happening. All right, that's the end of that discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Thank you.
Okay, there are 3 revised policies that I'd like to call your attention to. So in the next packet, if you could pull it out. These, by the way, are distributions. So although the changes are not large in the case of a couple of the policies, anytime we change anything at all, we need to make sure that we distribute it, and then the next meeting we can vote. And even if it's like a nomenclature change or a mass general law change, that's the kind of thing we're looking at. So in the case of the first policy, AC, just as a reminder, in June of 2012, we updated this policy. Or excuse me, was it? Yes, June of 2012. So it's fairly recent, but it does miss a couple of mass general law or regulatory requirements. They're highlighted, so if you look at the bottom of the non-discrimination policy, which I talked about before, it's excellent. It meets the requirements that we want for our district, as well as legal obligations. And it now includes sex and gender identity, rather than having those have been separate policies, and gender identity actually wasn't a recognized category in our policies previously, and is now. So with that, this is just a distribution, and
I thought I had the right one in here, but it also has to include the word age, AGE.
AGE.
So that'll be next to the highlighted when I distribute it.
Thank you. So if we can make a pen and ink change, and then before it gets emailed out, Steve, if you can make sure that along with the other 2 policies that you added prior to doing that. Thank you. So this would also say age discrimination as a protected category. Okay?
May I ask you a question?
Please.
So I noticed on your presentation there, Mr. LaMarche, you wrote homelessness. Do we have to put that in there as well? Would that be considered?
Yes, we do use that, so we will put that in too.
Okay.
Homelessness as well as a protected category.
I also have a question. Are these policies the ones that are coming from Mass?
That they're coming, so the way the process worked is the recommendations come in from the staff at Mass, who's full-time responsible for deals with policies and so forth. Many of those recommendations, made sense to us from a policy sub perspective. Some did not, and we made our deliberation and recommendation to you accordingly. So they definitely consider the information that we essentially are paying for from Mass, which is great because it's accelerated a lot of this process. But it's not this isn't a pass-through.
Okay, so we have a motion? Oh, no, we just actually distribution, forgive me.
Yeah, just distribution.
Yep.
The next policy that you have distributed is policy ADC. My thing is, yep, ADC. It's very, well, first of all, it says smoking on school premises. One of the changes that we need to make to this is adding the word smoking prohibited on school premises. My apologies, Steve, for not catching that when we did the draft. Smoking on school premises is not the title we want for this policy. Because we're implying things that are not true. It's smoking prohibited on school policies. That's a yellow highlighted thing that we added. We did include vaporizers because of the sort of evidence that the chemicals that are included in vaporizers are really, frankly, not that much chemically different than a lot of the harmful things that are in cigarettes. So that's included on here as well. Although small, that is a big addition. Vapor cigarettes would be prohibited and would be added to this policy, so that's really important. I think the industry term is vaporizers. I mean, we can, through feedback, if there's a more. Oh, right. I hear what you're saying about vaporizers. Thank you. We're going to make a note as a term, the correct term of art, but vaporizers were the ones that were discussed and we have recommended. So, but we'll follow up on that. I appreciate the feedback. It's already on there. Yeah, any tobacco products. Yeah. Yep.
Okay, the reason why I asked that is because smoking is prohibited, but chewing tobacco is not smoking.
No, it's.
So the tobacco products are prohibited?
And vaporizers, right? So we've selected a title to the policy. In other words, it's already very limited. Is what you're pointing out. That's good. That's good. We appreciate it. We were trying to tweak it minimally, but now we will make sure vaporizers is the right term of art. Let's see. Yep. So here's the way I'd like to handle this one. I would welcome your feedback and email. I've made a note about chewing tobacco, about vaporizers, and about, frankly, the title, although we're going to go round and round to get the title, because it's hard, other than having like sort of a two-line title to sort of name all these things. There's none of all these things on school campuses. I think I'd welcome any feedback that folks have, but we'll modify this for next time. This one, the vaporizers, the vapor cigarettes, if you will, for the moment. That is a significant change. And the only other subtle change is to acknowledge that in the code of conduct, the student code of conduct, that's where penalties, punishments, adjudication, appeal, that's what it's all about. So we made reference to that. Okay, so those are the recommended changes there for the moment. And did you have a question, Mr. Chair?
I think I just saw that was asking if it was, during non-school times, but it looks like the last part is prohibited at all times, i.e. if there's events on the weekends that are not technically school hours. Good example on soccer fields, and you see somebody.
Yeah, no, that's true.
By law, it is not.
That's true. Yeah, no, people on soccer fields can't smoke.
Right. I just saw that line and didn't think of it before.
Mr. Quick point of order, only because we have someone who's still with us and they have a question. So even though it's school business, I certainly would welcome a quick question.
I just want to know, with the changes about the tobacco products,
the
disallowance, will that be included in the handbook that the students get at the beginning of the year?
It absolutely would be. The question was whether or not this would be included in the student handbook, and the answer is yes. It would be updated to reflect these things as well. Thank you for that. So with that, thank you for your feedback. Welcome more. And it's a distribution at this point. And I'll need to give you an updated version of this before you can send on that one. Okay? Unless you felt like you got it. Okay. All right, and then the final distribution is ADDA, background checks. Now this one is a, dare I say, complete rewrite to the extent that it now includes, to be clear, we had Corey checks before, right? Those are the only kinds of background checks. Well, now we have fingerprinting, there's Corey's, there's other sources of information that we would mine and solicit or have legal responsibility to do so. So this is now called background checks. It incorporates a whole series of other policies and processes. I didn't say at first when we talked about retirements that one of the things we do not want to do in policy is have stipulations of like process and forms. Those are not appropriate for policy. Forms need to be flexible enough to be changed like whenever points of year that administration needs different information. Schools need to use different kind of context or information. Policy should be the guidelines under which and requirements under which the expectation is to occur. So with that, I will give you this distribution. This one is definitely worth taking a long view on. So there's certain homework here. I am not optimistic that we will necessarily vote on this in April. It might be like May or June, which is all good because we want it in advance of next year. But this one is definitely a long one. There's a lot of information here. So again, Amory and I welcome any kind of information about this, background checks. But with that, because it doesn't even apply anymore, and that's the reason I waited until we got to this point. Dare I say the title of this one, here we go, ADDA-R. Okay, so ADDA-R. This is basically a process policy, and process and policy are not things unless they're legally required that we want to be getting into. This is all, by the way, the applicable parts, there's only a couple that are still valid, are incorporated into background checks, right? Which is going to be our policy here very shortly. But more importantly, we've then basically recommended retirements of all -Rs anyway, because they're just process-based. And our processes are already covered elsewhere. Student handbooks, staff handbooks, other kinds of requirements. So this is really, we want this to be out. So the recommendation, a motion from Policy Sub is that we retire ADDA-R.
Wait a second. All those in favor? Excuse me, discussion. I apologize.
Yes,
Discussion.
Mr. Chairman, I wasn't able to find it, and MASC didn't find it, but we have an attached file. So I would recommend amending the motion to say ADDA-R plus attached file, which represents ADDA-E-1 and ADDA-E-2, which are forms that we have not used. There's an updated query form that we get from the state. So this is, again, I don't know how there was an attached file, but even MASC didn't identify that we had it as an attached file. So I don't believe it was actually incorporated as a policy because it has the word file next to it.
Yeah, I was going to address them separately, but frankly, they're directly related to R because they're the actual forms. We can't even use these forms anymore. That's probably the most significant one. So I don't know who seconded my motion, but I'd like to amend the motion to indicate that we recommend a retirement of policy ADDA-R and -E1 and -E. I think it, to be fair, it reflects almost everything in practice that the new policy and background check says. But with that, Steve.
Through the chair, our process isn't going to change with this policy. This policy incorporates the fingerprinting that's required of professional staff when we bring them on board. So our query check process isn't changing. So the form that we're talking about, we already have a form that we're using. This is a 2005 form that we're not using.
So it is the current form that we're using now.
But the parents are volunteering, they haven't, so not all our parents have a query form and file yet.
The way the state's really updated the whole query process, sometimes it only takes an hour to get a return on a query form. So our process for query checking has not changed, and this policy doesn't change what we do for queries. It only incorporates queries with fingerprinting to follow a policy around background checks.
All right, I just want to be prepared, because like I said, it's going to start next week. Thank you.
Good, thank you. Okay, so with that, those are the three distributions. Steve, thanks for getting those out via email as well.
Actually, we didn't vote. So let's finish. Yeah, let's finish that vote, please. Okay, I'm holding off. Any further discussion on this? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Correct, Mrs. Chairman, Policy Sub. We had a discussion and we didn't come to a conclusion, but I believe our discussion was that we would give this to the Wellness Committee to take a look at because it was a change before we presented it to the school committee for distribution. So we did put it in the list. We were, we're being very efficient with our policies at this point in time. We're doing all of that, but this one has to wait until it goes to the Wellness Committee.
Okay, so we'll get that back then. We're not even going to table it. We'll just get it back. That's what we're going to do. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, item number 10 on the agenda. Thank you for policy sub. I appreciate that work. Item number 10 on the agenda is the budget outreach scheduled. We'd like to schedule a time, and this again is to visit with members of the high school's student body at a time where they'd be willing to come in the afternoons prior to their departure for school. There's a class that they visit. And I would ask, I know I would be interested in going myself. The question then comes is, what does the board think about whether we should just before or after the vote in April?
because there is a proposed budget that was discussed in an open forum this evening, that's available. And so there is to be part of a discussion and some feedback in a timely manner. I think it might be helpful to have one of it. And then maybe people will end up coming, being involved in the meeting.
Excellent. Anybody else have any comments? I agree. Yeah, I actually had hoped that we would get a few students that might actually come to the meeting for our invitation. So then the next question is when? Enrichment, Steve, the enrichment block, do you happen to know when that starts? Is it,
I'm sure a parent or a student, I think it's Tuesdays and Thursdays, 12:30.
Tuesdays, Thursdays, it's before that, it's not, we have last year, it's before last year, last year is a month away too, so it's after lunch. After the lunch club. So like 11:45. Yeah, it's around there, 11:47, I think.
11:42.
Thanks, Jay.
Not that they know that by name.
God, they were up there.
so would anybody entertain the St. Patrick's Day is the 17th, Thursday. The 15th is a Tuesday, the 22nd, the 24th.
Yeah,
24th is a good day for me. I don't know about anybody else.
Thursday?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I'd like the 22nd.
Okay, I'm nothing partial. I'd be happy to do the 22nd as well.
And I'd be happy to do it.
At least 2 members. If someone else would like to go, then I'll just file it as an open meeting, and that's fine. So, yep. Okay, so the 22nd at
11:42.
So the next question is, do we invite anybody else, or should we keep the school committee? Do we want to invite some of the board of selectmen?
I do have an opinion of that. It is that this is for students, and students don't always get the opportunity to talk directly to them on the board without making too much of a production. It's, with all due respect to our elected colleagues, there's lots of opportunities for everybody to kind of come and join. I would really just be interested in having a conversation with the students themselves and kind of getting some insight and reflection. So, but
We don't have more.
Well, I just want to advise that it is a public meeting.
Yeah.
Well, we can't, no, my bad, but when we talk about invitation.
Correct. I understand.
Ultimately, anybody can come, but that's just true.
And that's certainly okay. Okay, so then we'll read the March 22nd, and it'll probably be sometime between 11:30 and 1:30. And let's hope this becomes a tradition. Okay. Mr. Donoghue. Finally. Item number 11, we have facility subcommittee capital outlay request. We had a couple of changes requested that's been going back and forth through the town, and I just wanted to ask Ed to just brief us briefly on those.
Yeah, I'll just go, I wait 3.5 hours to speak here, so.
Take the next 3.5 hours.
Custodians want to go home tonight, so I'll be brief. Okay, I'll just go quickly through the request, and then the ones that are adjusted, I'll go through. As far as I know, from the committee. So the request that we have submitted, the first one for the high school here is the air conditioning of the library / media center. No change to that, it was $60,000. And then we had system-wide technology plan, voice over IP phone systems and servers. We do $25,000. As far as I know, there's no change to that. I have talked about that a little bit, but I think that's going to go forward as such. We did have a request for 2 minibuses for $120,000. They have requested that we reduce that to 1 minibus. That was up to $60,000. We only get 1 bus this year, next fiscal year.
Hey, can you just hold on? Okay, where you're on the chart.
I'm just on the chart. Sorry, because the top cover chart. The next one was Flooring replacement for the middle school and the admin building, $35,000. No change, I believe, to that one at all. The next one is asbestos abatement, which is mostly at the high school. And that, we request $150,000. They've asked us to forego a year and wait. We're not supporting that request, and we would go for the money for FY18. Soundproofing at Bourne Elementary and here at the high school. Base studio is $60,000. That's still going forward, as far as I know. No change on that. And the last item was the gymnasium, sanding, painting, refinishing the gymnasium for the middle school. $27,000. That's still going forward. I'll probably give an update on that. We have had an issue over the past weekend, or on the holiday weekend. We have an issue with water leaking in the middle school and 3 different classrooms in the gymnasium. And initially we thought we got off the hook and the gymnasium floor was not that damaged. It was just a slight, lifting of the floor. But after another weekend, we went back and looked at it again. There's just severe damage to the floor, the bathroom floor. It's really falling. Well, it affects like the half nearest the outside entrance. So we have, so I was going to contact, we already had a contract come down and evaluated. I have contacted the insurance agent today, the adjuster's coming tomorrow. We are going to move forward with, obviously, they have to just replace that section, replace the plywood underlaying it, there's plastic on it and concrete. For the water, whatever water it was, once it gets under there, it's not going to evaporate, but it's just under to go. So so we're going to move forward with that. Our goal, is to get that completed in the next couple of weeks, if possible, because it doesn't have tournaments through the 18th, which is a big event. So hopefully that's our goal.
So you think that potentially that number could go down?
Or potentially, the other potential is I talked to the contractor. I'm going to talk to the adjuster. We're going to have, I don't know if they would, as part of the claim, do the whole floor, because I'll have to match and paint it. So that could be incorporated as part of that project. With the insurance, it's something to look at. So if that does happen, I don't know yet, that would actually probably may go away. We can get this covering the insurance claim. And then later, we wouldn't do that. Our goal right now is to get the floor functional to get through the rest of the school year. Then in the summertime, we address the whole floor. That ties up the gym for a couple of weeks itself. We really can't do it all the students there.
Is there a safety concern now?
We have it all barricaded off. So no issue. Work close with the teachers. They're not doing that area. And that's all I have. Some questions. A couple other things. There's been a couple of changes to the budget schedule we posted before. The budget subcommittee will present the budget to the Board of Selectmen and FinCom on March 14th. We originally had that scheduled as the 16th. The change that was given on Monday the 14th. And the other change was potentially the budget presented to the Board of Selectmen for 4/19, not 4/20, which is on the original schedule. 19th will be presented the budget to the Board of Selectmen. FinCom will be 3/14, and we're talking April 19th.
Yeah, it gives us an opportunity to vote.
Yeah, April 19th, April 19th. That's all I have. Any question?
It'll never end.
Sorry.
I think we have a facilities meeting tomorrow, but just quickly, the asbestos, so if you don't do the 150, will it become 200 of a request, or will you go back to 150? For your ask for 18?
I believe the request should be the same. I don't think we increase in the cost. I believe we still be looking at the same amount.
Well, just looking at it, because you had 50, kind of as a placeholder going forward,
Yeah.
so we could make this
Like the 200 or stick with the
I would think it would be, that would be the placeholder for ongoing maintenance, but I think the 150 would suffice for next year.
To answer your question a little bit, to evolve Mr. Donahue's answer to that question, is we've had ongoing discussions with capital outlay that we shouldn't be putting maintenance, ongoing maintenance in there. So the 50,000 per year is going to be probably removed unless we have a substantial project that needs to be addressed. 150 is really what we're considering one of our last phases for asbestos abatement. You know, asbestos containing materials, which right now is in, you know, really decent shape, but something we have to do. It's here in this building. But as far as 50,000 a year, that won't carry over unless there's a major project that needs to be done.
Okay, I think the next item on our list is review of proposed future agenda items. The next meeting we're looking at, put a March 22nd, 11:30 to 1:30 on file for an open meeting just for the purposes of a discussion with the students. And then after that, I think it's April 6th, 2016.
Mr. Chairman, the item that needs to be there is the school year calendar for next year.
Okay, thank you. And that's in April. I remember. And I think we accomplished everything else. We're not on the table, so. Anybody have anything else to add? I would love to entertain a motion.
Second.
All those in favor for adjourn?
Aye.
Opposed?
Thanks, James and Jay.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jen.